Yeah, break it down. What? Yeah, yeah. Do 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 ba ba da da da. Here we go. We did it. We did it. Glory me and mercy me and glory blah blah blah. Glory be and mercy me. We've done it yet again. Here we are. Milo, off screen, looking at me like a beautiful little pug. What a sweetheart you are. Here we are, streaming away again. Another day of documenting this incredible catastrophe. Isn't it amazing? Isn't it nice? You know what was really nice about today? I finally went and did another one of my daily walkarounds. Some of my regulars. Falcon husbandry! Whatever you say, Cotton. It was nice to spend a little bit of time back in the park, back in the graveyard, right? Just walking around, enjoying life, living life, being real, right? It's nice to remember that life is not just our politics or even humanity itself. That life is this grand system that you can go out into at any time. Of course, only for a period of time. Thank you, Major. I appreciate it. I do appreciate it. I had stopped doing them for a little while, and I know why. Because doing those walk-around videos takes psychic energy. I take psychic damage doing those videos. There's no other way to describe it. It's walking around the graveyard, recognizing my own mortality and my own existence, my own temporal nature. It's connecting to the larger spiritual self and the spiritual energy while talking about the reality of what is actually happening in today's society, and realizing that we've been painted into a corner. We've been painted into a bad situation. We don't have alternatives any longer. This story all by itself. This story all by itself is everything you need to know. Honestly, the fact that political dissidents are being raided and arrested for gaining any amount of prominence, for gaining any amount of strength, for gaining any amount of steam. I think if you can't put two and two together on this, if you can't understand how this delegitimizes the system that we live in, then I don't think you can understand anything in the system. I don't think you can understand anything. Like, I don't trust your opinion on anything if you can't understand how devastating this is to the project of democracy, to the idea of a democratic free society, that someone stands up and says something that opposes the capitalist death cult, or if you prefer, if you can't stomach that idea of the reality of the death cult, standing against the political norm, and they get harassed by cops for it. If you can't understand why that's a problem, then you're probably just a fascist, or at least fine with fascists, which seems to be the case. Barnabas, this is a misrepresentation of my following. Nobody in my following wants to kill white men for being white. It's just not true. That is slanderous, in fact. and I won't tolerate it. It's inaccurate. I've been trying to learn fried rice. Today I tried doing the fried rice single lentils. It was epic. Fantastic, Cotton. Fantastic. You know, it's these small victories. It's these small victories. Nah. It's okay. We're not going to get into it, Barnabas. It's the small victories right now, right? The steady improvements. The slow improvements, right? Like, I don't know how this could be taken seriously, right? I have a following. I'm a straight white man, and I have a following who want to kill straight white men for being white. It's, like, I'm not going to deny the existence of such a phenomenon, but I don't see it within my own base and within the people who are actually supporting me. I feel like I'm seeing a lot of projection here, is what I'm seeing. And we talk about white supremacy and the white power structure, which certainly exists, that there and the existence of white privilege, and the existence of the existence of white privilege, the existence of the white power structure, and how these things need to be dismantled and confronted and acknowledged, right? There is such a thing as white privilege. It for sure exists. There is such a thing as, like, white male straight privilege. Like, it's completely the truth. Simply the fact that a white man who presents as straight can walk out into the street and be unharassed for doing so, that's a privilege. Just very straightly. Like, if you're a transgendered person and you present as transgendered, right? You are harassed. That's the truth. You're harassed. I know it's the truth. I've seen it. I've witnessed it. I myself, I have been in theater. I have dressed in drag for shows and for Halloween and for all of these sorts of things. And I have been taken as trans. And I can tell you from firsthand experience that if that's the regular experience for the trans community, then I have white privilege. I have white male privilege, without a doubt. For sure. 100%. And I think it's completely undeniable. What do you think about American systemic racism? What do I think about American systemic racism? I mean, it sucks. Like, it's the worst. It's lame. I hate it. I wish that it wasn't so. Cody Johnson of Some More News just did a really, really good breakdown of the private prison systems that exist. And while he wasn't explicitly talking about the systemic racism that obviously exists within the legal system and the prison system, it definitely did evoke that kind of thought that the capitalist death cult is trying to maintain a system of slavery. It always has, right? It used to be just literally pick up black people and enslave them. And now they've had to be a bit more clever about it, right? So they, while they got rid of chattel slavery directly, they just reintegrated the slave system into the prison system. That it's okay to have a slave if they're a prisoner in America. And so what have they done? They created a mass prison system. They created an enormous prison system that they funnel predominantly black people into, right? And then what do? They create economic despair amongst the black community, ensuring that the only option and the only opportunity that they have is crime, right? For the most part. And so that ensures a steady flow of people into the prison system. And the private prison system is completely incentivized to maximize the amount of prisoners they have. Like, it's brutal. It's a vicious system, and it's staggering to see a society exist in this way, and a society maintain and believe that they're the greatest country in the world while maintaining the largest prison population in the world. Like, if the Soviet Union, they keep going on about gulags, right? Because the word gulag is scary. That's all it is, right? That if you're an incompetent illiterate, the word gulag, right? If at any point the Soviet Union had 25% or 20% of the world's prison population, they'd never shut up about it. It would be the only thing they would say to me. It would be a constant, overt, like, on repetition, right? Oh, communism, gulag, 25% of the world's prison population. Communism, gulag, 25% of the world's prison population. And it'd just be a circle, be the only thing they'd ever say. But they can have 25% of the world's prison population, with something like 70 to 80% of that prison population being black, when only 10 to 20% of the civilian population is black. And that's normal, totally normal society, completely normal, right? Like, America is a barbarian state. It's barbaric. It's not interested in being anything but. I think that's the important thing to know about America, is that it wants to be a barbarian state. That's what it wants. I got a really good one here. Yeah. How the U.S. made a breakthrough battery discovery, then gave the technology to China. You go through this, right? And you can listen to this. It's an 11-minute listen. I'm not going to read the whole thing. But the breakdown is very clear, right? That for short-term profit, the Americans took a technology, which is a battery that could power a home. Here, hold on. Yeah. Employees were laid off all across the world. Yeah, the Chinese company is making the batteries in Dalian, China. Companies didn't steal this technology. It was given to them by the U.S. Department of Energy. An NPR investigation found the department allowed the technology and jobs to move overseas, violating its own licensing rules, while failing to intervene on behalf of U.S. workers in multiple instances. Now China is forging ahead, investing millions into this cutting-edge green technology that was supposed to help keep the U.S. and its economy out front. Right? And why? So that some billionaire somewhere can get an extra bump, right? Get an extra, instead of having 1.5 billion, they've got 1.7 billion, right? And that's literally what it's for. And so here's a story about how the United States made a breakthrough discovery in battery technology and then handed it over to China, who now is investing in it and actually building it and actually using it, actually doing something with it, while the United States just sits and is struggling to pass a bill to even get an infrastructure package to help with their inflation crisis, right? Literally, Joe Manchin is going around bragging about how he's destroying any attempt to get green energy initiatives through, and celebrating that they're going to be building more pipelines, celebrating that they're going to be doubling back down on fossil fuels, right? Like, America is heading into a dark age, while China, while they literally give the technology that is required for them to move out of a dark age into a new era, and they're just giving it away to other countries. Like, America is a failed state. It exploits minority groups. It enslaves them completely, using legal systems and systems of systemic racism in order to oppress people. And it's very clear. Like, it's at this stage in the game, you got to kind of be dopey to miss it. Like, really. You got to kind of close your eyes and close your ears and just keep listening to Shapiro, I guess, in order to pretend as though these things don't actually exist. What is it to be white? Do pale-skinned people die because white supremacy is destroyed? Can I not exist if white supremacy doesn't exist? What is it to be white? I mean, white is a false construct in the first place, which is more or less the entire point, right? That before whiteness, we were all like Polish, Irish, French, English, Scottish, German, right? We were defined by our nationalities. And then we come over to North America. There's a big immigration push into North America for various reasons, etc., right? And the capitalist power structure realizes very quickly that it's better to create unity amongst the white races in order to continue enslaving the non-white races. And so whiteness as a concept is completely manufactured and created in the first place. It doesn't actually exist. Like, yes, there are people walking around with white skin, but to be white is not like an identity. There's that the only white identity that exists you'll find in the Ku Klux Klan and the Nazi Party. That the true reality is that we're all people. We're all humans attempting to deal with a death cult that's doing everything it can to create slaves, right? And it found a very easy way to identify who's a slave and who isn't in the society. If you're white, you're not a slave. If you're not white, you are a slave. And that distinction has prevailed and is still very much existent even up until the modern era. That we are basically just now breaking out of that, but only to small degrees. Only to small degrees. But then I say I support it. Hurts. I legit called the police today to tell them they're a piece of... You're calling the police to tell them they're pieces of shit. All right, might as well summon the lightning. Yeah, Gulag is Russian for jail, exactly. Well, yeah, like as if Americans care about other languages, right? As if as if Americans are just like, there's only one language that matters, and that's American. That's how they are. Russia would literally become something objectively worse than Nazi Germany, in the minds of Westerners at least. Yeah, I mean, but that is the argument, right? That, like, during the Ukraine crisis, the Donbass war, people were outright saying to me on a fairly regular basis that it's fine for us to fund Nazis because they're fighting Russians, right? So in the minds of these fascist liberal losers, it's totally fine to gussy up with Nazis, right? Like, because we've created an image in our mind of a Russian society that is somehow worse than Nazis. Like, this is the porridge brain that we're dealing with. This is the pudding brain that we're dealing with. Like, modern day Russia is not worse than Nazism, not by a long shot. Even saying it out loud is a total embarrassment. But these people aren't capable of being embarrassed. Like, it's not. There's no sense of embarrassment if you don't have that, right? Yeah, there were no white people before 1500. Well, you take a look at European history. Like, there was no sense of, like, we whites need to stay together. Like, that's not how it was, right? Like, they fought amongst each other constantly, right? White people love to go to war with one another. Yep, what constitutes as white can be easily shuffled, moving the goalpost. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I have an intuitive understanding of whiteness, and it makes me pretty hostile to it. There you go, John. Some member hate people just for being white, even if they're comrades. Barnabas, I feel like you're projecting a lot in this conversation. Like, I feel like I'm seeing a lot of projection. That, like, what people are saying is that there is a white power structure with that has prevailed from the era of slavery. We're trying to deal with the white power structure, which clearly exists, right? And if somebody says that, then you say, "Oh, you hate white people." It's literally not what's being said. It's literally not what's being said. Like, and in my view, it makes all the sense in the world. Like, go listen to any of the speeches given by Malcolm X, Martin Luther King's later speeches, right? Like, black and Latino people have a reason to be mistrustful of white people. Like, they do. And it's and in my view, it's completely understandable. I genuinely don't have a problem with it. Like, I understand that it's unfortunate. I don't like it. I'm not a fan of it. Right? Didn't call fellow white comrades liberal simps. Like, what are you talking about? Like, Malcolm X said much worse things about white people. Much worse things. Right? That, like, the white power structure needs to be confronted. And if all you're going to do when people begin talking about the white power structure is say, "Oh, you hate white people," well, that's not too much different than saying all lives matter. It's not really that much different, honestly. Like, if somebody stands up and is talking about the white power structure and has concerns about white privilege and white supremacy and wants to talk about these things, right? And you take it personally like this and begin saying, "Oh, this is an insult to me personally, as a white person personally," well, I think that might be a you problem. Because we need to be able to talk about these things pretty openly. Yeah, I think that's completely accurate, Barnabas. Like, you felt personally attacked because you're white and they were not, right? You've never done anything to them. This has a lot of all lives matter vibes going on with it, right? No, I didn't enslave anybody. I didn't have any slaves. What are these people complaining about? Right? It's all the same kind of thing, right? Like, and I'm not saying it's appropriate to that you're getting name called, right? But, like, I think it's wiser. Yes, of course, it's all about class. Like, but it isn't all about class, right? That class is, in my view, the most primary and important thing to be focused on. That's what we should be talking about most of the time. But there are just realities that exist in terms of race dynamics. You can't simply ignore them, right? And certainly if you're going to blow up this way when confronted with them, right? It's unbelievable, Barnabas. Like, how can you possibly hope to create coalitions, to create alliances with people? How can you possibly hope to create any kind of alliance with anybody if, when they begin talking about white power structures and white people, this is what happens, right? I just don't think it's possible. Like, I just don't think it's possible that, especially for straight white men, there's a great amount of humility and patience that needs to come into the conversation. Yeah, forgive them. Forgive them. That's all. Just forgive them. That's all. It doesn't go any farther than that. And anything else is just going into a big circle. and I don't need to bother with it. Forgive them. Yeah. Be more gracious than that. Forgive them. People of color and people and gay people and transgendered people, right? And women, right? They have a lot of reasons. They have reason to be skeptical. And when people act this way, and I'm not saying it's appropriate, but you have two options. You can act this way, which I have to be honest, Barnabas, I think is a bit childish. Like, really. Or you can just accept it and be like, okay, everybody's dealing with their own stuff. Everybody's dealing with their own stuff. And I accept it. I may not agree with it, but I would prefer to move forward in allegiance and alliance and unity. And forgive. And forgive. That's it. No, that's not what's happening. It's just not what's happening, Barnabas. Yeah, all lives matter, bud. Like, that's basically what you're doing right now. All lives matter, right? Just all lives matter. Yeah, because it's about you, right? It's about you, the straight white man, right? It's about you, right? That's what matters in this conversation, right? All lives matter, right? That's what I'm seeing here, bud. Straight up, very straightforwardly. Like, very, very straightforwardly. All lives matter. Like, forget about the history of it. Forget about the fact that so being white is naturally evil. I mean, we're the ones putting on hoods and doing Nazi salutes. We're the ones that are creating a big party, right? Like, we're the ones. So First Nations can hate on race. I mean, you have to acknowledge that they have reason to be skeptical. Right? Like, you're pretending like it's all flat. Like, everybody's operating from the same place. Right. No, right. All lives matter, right? Like, don't forget about the historical analysis. Right? Forget about paying attention to what actually happened. Right? No, that would be you. All lives matter, right? That's what's going on. That you're upset because people are talking about the white power structure and you're taking it personally. No, I'm not missing your point. I'm not missing your point. Your point is that people talk about white power structures and you take it personally. That when people talk about whiteness, right. You know what, Barnabas? I think I'm good. I think I'm good. I think I'm going to move on from this. Mark Binbaum. Don't think about it. Or Birnbaum. No. You're not convincing anybody that you're an adult by talking that way. You're not convincing anybody that you're an adult by talking that way. Period. Full stop. You will speak to me with respect or you will be gone. Full stop. I'm a grown man. Full stop. Mark Birnbaum. Yeah, Elon Musk is a charlatan and a fraud for sure. I don't know if I've ever seen you around here, bud. Good to see you. Good to see you, bud. Oh. All lives matter, except for one kind. Only Cthulhu matters. Yeah. Now, Anemone, please do not... this is Discord drama, right? And honestly, Barnabas isn't in the Discord anymore, and you can see why. You can see why. Very straightforwardly. All lives matter, right? The U.S. is heading for civil war with Trump's arrest. I mean, has Trump been arrested? again, like, I'm not, don't put that in the chat, John. Don't put that in the chat, John. Like, that's how you summon shit, man. That's how you summon shit. All right. LA is making it illegal to be homeless in 20% of the city. Mark says, been watching your videos for a few months. Voted communist for the first time ever in a political election. Good for you, bud. Good for you, bud. I'm new to the left in the past few years, and it's cozy over here. I like that, Mark. That's nice. Cozy. That's what I like. That's what I like, man. People, the number one comment I get is that I'm trying to, like, it seems like I'm trying to create a bit of sanity, right? I'm trying to create something that acknowledges reality while trying to keep it sane, right? I like cozy. I like cozy a lot. That's very good. Yeah, John doesn't want to live a long life. I've worked in funeral services. I know what the last 20 years of life looks like. I think if you miss out on that, you're not missing much of anything. It's like what when I was a kid, I used to say to smokers, you know, you're cutting years off your life. And then I worked in funeral services for a while, and I don't say that anymore. Smoke away. You're not going to miss anything. And thank you for the compliments, guys. Anemone, I think you're the best, John. I appreciate what you do very much. Well, thank you, Anemone. I appreciate that a lot. I really do. It's nice that we've created this environment. It's nice that we've created this place where we can all come in and talk about this ridiculous stuff. Because it's all fucking ridiculous. Major. F it. We should summon things. Bro, tell me about it, dude. Tell me about it. I've been watching Sandman. And it's good. It's good. I think I'm almost ready to recommend it. I'm waiting for them to turn the dagger and come at me. Come at me, bro. Initially, I was very skeptical that they were doing a lot of like race and gender swapping, like doing like the diversity kind of the cynical. This will get the diversity crowd on our side kind of thing. But it's so ubiquitous and it's so overdone that I can't believe that it would be from sheer cynicism. It's so obviously an artistic choice. It's so obviously a decision that they're making to take fairly major characters and do race and gender swapping with them. Like, it's basically all of them. It's Lucifer, Constantine, even Death. Yeah, read the Sandman and Lucifer comic books. They're really good. Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing that I'm really enjoying about Sandman, my biggest concern, truthfully, was that it was just going to be another Marvel thing, right? And what I've come to really appreciate about what Sandman is doing is that it does, like, in terms of its special effects, in terms of the way it's shot, in terms of that sort of stuff, they're clearly picking up a lot of lessons from the Marvel stuff. They're clearly using a lot of the technical aspect. Yes, I understand it's DC. I know it's DC, John. Turn off the caps key, John. Things are getting too intense. Yes, the first season is not a betrayal. That's what it comes down to for me, Conton. I'm always waiting for them to betray me. Always. That's why the race and gender swapping, I was like, is this the sign? Is this the sign of betrayal? But the thing that they're definitely doing that I'm really valuing is that they're taking the subject matter seriously. The Marvel movies are especially bad for this, where everything needs to have a quip or a joke or an undercut or something to take to depressurize the drama, right? Well, I mean, Game of Thrones season 8 of Game of Thrones is one of the largest artistic betrayals in maybe the history of film and television. Like I genuinely cannot think of a larger betrayal of the actors, the audience, everybody than the final season of Game of Thrones. Like a complete betrayal of the source material itself. Like literally, the prologue of Game of Thrones is the introduction of the White Walkers. Obviously, the trajectory of this story is the climax is the White Walkers. It's obvious that what you are doing with the White Walkers is having a grand final standoff, taking all of these disparate threads and pulling them into a single place, which I would say that single place should be King's Landing. That episode where the White Walkers attacked Winterfell should not have been the end of the White Walkers. The White Walkers should have won. The heroes, if you like, or the people who were at Winterfell fighting the White Walkers should have fled, and they should have fled to King's Landing, where they would have encountered Cersei and all of this kind of nonsense, and then the White Walkers would have come to King's Landing. And there would have been a grand final confluence there with the White Walkers. But the idea that they would end the story with anything other than the White Walkers, and in fact, season 8 basically just sidelined them, essentially. Just basically was like, yeah, White Walkers, it's over. Right, let's move on with anything else. Yeah, it's an embarrassment. Like, you genuinely can no longer call yourself a storyteller if that's the shit you're gonna pull, right? Like literally, obviously, the end of the story is the battle with the White Walkers. Like, obviously, like you've got to be stupid to believe anything else. And I just think the most interesting, and honestly, like they sidelined Bran. Like Bran is literally a wizard. And they completely sidelined him. He didn't do any magic. It was like total bullshit. They sidelined Jon, essentially. Like, they had given Jon, like, he resurrected. He was getting, like, holy paladin powers and shit. And they just sidelined him, right? And, literally, I think most of the decisions they made... There's a rumor going around in regards to the Game of Thrones guys. Because their next project was Star Wars, which was with Disney. And so lots of people are like, yeah, Disney paid them off. Disney paid them off to mess this up on purpose. And they did. Right? And they did. Like, I think there's a lot of credence to this. Like, I don't know how you mess this up. Like, and I'm blown away that no one in the process stopped and was like, whoa, these suck. Like, we've got footage of the table readings where the actors are reading the scripts, like their final scenes where they die and all of this. The guy that played Varys was absolutely the case in point, where they finished the table read and he was visibly upset. Like, you could see it on him. He was like, this is what I spent the last 10 years of my life on. I spent the last 10 years of my life dedicating it to this character, and this is the ending that they give me. This is the final hurrah for me, right? This embarrassing, moronic, hackneyed political snafu that gets the queen to kill him. Like, are you kidding me? All of the characters become stupid and moronic. All of the characters do ass-backwards, ridiculous things that are and he was disgusted. He should have been disgusted. I was disgusted for him. They did Varys and Littlefinger, they did those guys super dirty. Like, that was dirty what they did. You can find that on YouTube, dude. It's easy to find. Just literally Game of Thrones Season 8 table read. You'll find it. And you'll find lots of people commenting on it. Like... Yeah. And the betrayal that Season 8 levied on the populace, it was immediate. Like here in Canada, we literally were saying, we the North. Our championship NBA team was using "We the North" as its slogan, right? It was obviously a Game of Thrones tie-in. That's how big the culture had become, right? And so and then instantly that went away. Literally the next day, boom, gone, right? Like that's entire cultural betrayal, and like Littlefinger was even worse because Littlefinger literally was in a situation where here's Bran, an omnipotent, all-seeing wizard being, like a druid, right? But I'm going to try and scheme around him. No. Right? Yeah, I'm going to try and pit these two sisters against one another and just cross my fingers that they won't get into a room with one another and be like, hey, how you doing? No. Like, what are you, stupid? Like, Littlefinger's entire move, obviously his only move, is to go to Bran directly and be like, hey, Bran, so you know I was fairly instrumental in the death of your father, right? Like, you can see through time and space, right? So let's be straight. You can see through time and space. You're like a beyond temporal being. You're a wizard. You have magical powers, right? So you know that I betrayed your father. You know that I was instrumental in him being put in that position. In my defense, I didn't do it in the hopes that he would be executed. I wanted him to be banished back to Winterfell. That's what I was going for. And so instead of having this absolutely brilliant scene, and this absolutely great scene, where Littlefinger is confessing to a wizard, while the wizard is just watching him do it, right? And then managing to talk his way out of it. Because that's what Littlefinger would have done. That's how his character would have achieved. Like, the arc for Littlefinger is not that he accidentally fucks up because he's a moron and then dies. Right? Same story with Varys. The arc for Varys is not that he accidentally fucks up and then dies. Right? Yeah, Littlefinger also forgot about trial by combat, right? Any number of things. Right? Any number of things. So just like... It's just embarrassing, and these people have shown that they're willing to do this stuff. This is why I'm so skeptical. It's why I'm so skeptical. I'm still skeptical of Sandman. I'm still skeptical of Sandman. Like, I'm waiting for them to twist the dagger. I'm waiting for them to twist the dagger and betray me. Here's a lesser known one, right? Stephen King wrote a book called Under the Dome. And I loved this book. Under the Dome was, I think, one of Stephen King's greatest... I put it up there with The Stand. I think it was like a real masterpiece of a book. And so when they said they were going to do a show on it, I was really excited. And the first 6 episodes were a scene-by-scene recreation. Literally just taking the subject matter and putting it to film. And just shot by shot, line by line, no deviations, no messing around. Everything was as it was in the book, and I was hype for 6 episodes. And then they immediately started to deviate because it became clear that they didn't want it to be a series or a short mini-series. They wanted to get 15,000 seasons out of it, right? They were like, wow, this is really good. We should change it and make more. And they fucked it up, and it was terrible. It was terrible. It like literally went from being like some of the best television I had seen to being like a kids WB show, essentially. Like, it was bad what happened. And it was like, it's not very well known, but it's just another case of like how these guys are incapable of producing art. That everything is just money for money's sake. They did the same thing with American Gods. That American Gods, the first season, absolutely brilliant. Why? Because it's a scene for scene, shot for shot recreation of the story. And then season 2, they just started adding bullshit. Why? Because they wanted 5 seasons, 6 seasons, 1,000 seasons, right? Just, these suckers will watch it. They're stupid, right? They don't care about stories or plot or character development, right? They don't get invested in this stuff to try and see it reflect themselves in their lives and try to use this as a platform for their own personal growth. Nah, they're just watching this because they're basically masturbating. Like, get the fuck right out of here, man. Like, get the fuck right out of here. Like, I literally would like, watch anything. Watch anything else. Like, don't pay any attention to these studios. Like, I don't think they're actually capable of producing art. Like, I don't think they're interested in it. I don't think they can. It's literally like you're just a monkey jerking off. That's the extent of what's happening. You're a wizard, Harry. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the books. Let's be honest, John. Let's be honest. Sorry, Mocked, I'm not skipping your shit here, dude. Let's be honest what's going to happen here, John. George R. R. Martin is going to die, and Brandon Sanderson's going to finish the series. We all know that's what's happening. Like, let's not fuck around. Right? Brandon Sanderson's the hot shit right now in fantasy writing. George R. R. Martin is old and dying. He's going to die. Brandon Sanderson's going to finish it. And he'll do a fine job. He'll do a fine job. In my view, the reason why George R. R. Martin can't finish the book, finish the series, is because there's no more twists left. All of George R. R. Martin's writing, if you take a look at any of his projects outside of Game of Thrones, like, he loves twists. He loves them. And he's brilliant at them, right? He's bold and he's daring and and he really will go out on a limb, right? Like, people, spoiler alert, I guess, people do not understand how absolutely shocking the execution of Eddard Stark was. From a storytelling perspective, that is a very bold decision, but from a fantasy perspective, that's fucking unheard of. You do not fucking kill your protagonist. And Eddard Stark is certainly the protagonist of that story, right? Like, you don't do it. No one, in the history of fantasy writing, nobody dies. And if they do, they just come back, right? You think Gandalf the Grey, right? Like, Gandalf dies, no he doesn't, he comes back, right? The most popular fantasy series before Game of Thrones was The Wheel of Time, right? And same story. Nobody died. If they died, they came back 2 pages later. Like, literally, like, death is not permanent in fantasy worlds. And it was essentially a rule in fantasy writing. People, main characters are incapable of death. That their death is only done in order to show how much more powerful they actually are, right? That they are so powerful that they can overcome death itself, right? That's why death is used in fantasy writing. Not so with George R. R. Martin. Not so with him, right? That he uses the death of Eddard Stark as not only a way to completely destroy the expectations of the fantasy reader, like decimate it utterly, but also to completely fracture the universe that he himself had created. That if Eddard Stark had have been banished back to Winterfell and all this, it would have created discord, right? But Eddard Stark's death is literally fractious. It sparks a continent-level war amid this backdrop of a rising White Walker and magical threat. Dragons in the east. Like an epic story rising about. And so it was a brilliant maneuver. And then he did it again with the Red Wedding. Right? The Red Wedding was another, like, whoa, hey, these characters that you've been following, right? Well, fuck them too. Right? And then in the books, which they abandoned in the show for no reason that I can understand, Caitlyn comes back to life. Right? So just another dagger turn and another major twist. Just like, you think it's going this way. No, it's not, motherfucker. No, it's not. It's going a completely different way. But here's the problem. There's no more twists left. right? Twists are over, right? They're fun. We like them. They're good. There's no more twists, right? That the actual story of Game of Thrones is now, the actual story of A Song of Ice and Fire is now moving forward to the dragons in the sky, the children of men, the White Walkers, wizards with high magic, right? Like, as high a magic as you can get. Undead army coming. Giants, tyrants, fireballs, treants. Like an enormous, high-scale fantasy warfare on a backdrop of political intrigue. As generals are directing troops to fight the White Walkers, Cersei is walking around with a poisoned dagger, picking her targets, executing people as they are fighting undead, closing the door behind them, going, oh, and in comes the dagger, right? This is obviously the story. Obviously. The name of the series is A Song of Ice and Fire. It is obvious. And he doesn't want to write it. Because it's obvious. There's no twist. Right? He's not going to get that big, like, tee-hee-hee-hee, I got him feel that he obviously enjoys. Right? Because that's all over. Right? That's all over. Now it's just telling the story that's obviously there. Right? And you can tell that he thinks there's a twist. You can tell that the thing that's hooking him, the thing that's keeping him from just doing it, is that he's trying to find a way to do it. He's trying to find a way to be like, what's the twist? What's the final twist of the dagger? There's no final twist to the dagger. There's no final twist to the dagger. We know what the story is. Tell the fucking story. And he just doesn't want to. All right. John, you say that countries in North America and Western Europe are capitalist, yet the government won't let me be racist towards my tenants. Care to explain? Touche, mocked. Touche. I don't know how to respond to that, dude. He would have had Jacqueline kill Ned on the way to the wall. John, what's my favorite Stephen King book? It is Under the Dome. That's my favorite. Under the Dome was so absolutely brilliant. Just such a simple concept that really heightened human conflict and human drama. With an ending... without spoilers, I'm not going to spoil this, but like Stephen King is just absolutely an expert at telling these like big dramatic stories where there is like a D-line plot that he'll focus on for a few pages at a time, right? It just sparkles in every so often where it's like, oh, and then there's this guy, right? There's this guy of no real account. He's just sort of milling about doing a thing, right? He's nothing. And King is an expert of having that D-line plot just kind of plugging along and plugging along and plugging along at something of just a bemusement for the reader, almost a break for the reader, like a type of humor-based catharsis, usually, and then at the end, that D-level plot becomes the plot. Like The Stand is he does this in The Stand, right? That there's that one character who's just like plugging along, just biking along, all that kind of stuff. He shows up at the end. Nobody knows who this guy is. Here he is. Oh, he's got a nuke. Boom. And Stephen King is the absolute expert of this. He's pristine at it. And I found myself in Under the Dome when it happened. I found myself being like, no fucking way. No way. Like, no way. I did not believe the scale of what was happening as it was happening when I was reading Under the Dome. And in my view, that's expert craftsmanship. That like I always say on this channel, like my background is film, theater, right? Like I can usually see what's happening as it's happening, right? I can usually predict it. It takes a very skillful hand to present one thing and then, haha, it was actually this, right? That's a very skillful maneuver. It's like a magician, right? To convince you that the plot is going this way, but really it's this, right? Which is what George R. R. Martin is trying to do with the finale of his thing. He's trying to go, haha, but the reality is that the structure of his piece demands that he does not, right? We all know what the ending needs to be, and that is, in fact, the most satisfying end. It has to be that way, right? Like, the question of does Daenerys maintain her sanity or not is an interesting one, and could be perceived as something of a twist, although the HBO show ruined it, because they fucked up the twist. They didn't set it up. It came out of fucking nowhere, so it wasn't a twist, it was just stupid. And, Stephen King is an expert at this. Being like, this is what the story is actually about. Ha ha! And Under the Dome, it's pristine. He does it perfectly. Really perfectly. Yeah, didn't remember it was Stephen King. Yeah. What are your thoughts on The Walking Dead? Walking Dead, also another show that the moment they started to deviate from the comic, the show fell apart completely. I think it was season 2, or it might have been season 3. I don't remember. It was one of the seasons that literally it didn't need to exist. They were like in a facility or something. It was just a pointless season that if they had just taken the season out and thrown it in the bin, no one would have noticed. Nothing important happened, right? I remember watching an episode of Walking Dead where they literally were explaining outright, like, no, you can't, there's no cure, we can't heal them. It really felt like they were taking, like, Midwestern housewives, sitting them down and saying, sorry, sweetie, once these people are zombies, they're not humans anymore, so it's okay to kill them. It really felt like there was, like, a lot of hand-holding that happened. They really, really edged back on how cool the protagonist's son became. Like, in the comics, the protagonist's son becomes fucking awesome. Like, he becomes a very cool, rugged, strong, powerful person as, like, a 12-year-old very quickly, right? Because he's living in a fucking survival world where there are zombies and shit. And the strength of the comic is that they say of these kids are capable. Like, they're perfectly capable, right? Sure, they're small, sure, they're still weak, sure, they're all that kind of stuff. But real talk, put a pistol in this kid's hand and have him shoot straight, and he's going to take out zombies, and in the comics, he fucking did. And in the television show, they just turned him into a bitch. They just turned him into a crying, whiny little bitch because kids are precious and innocent and sweet and you gotta protect them at all. And everything he did in the show, if he did something cool, he immediately had like a weird little breakdown or he was like startled at the fact that he had done it. Meanwhile, in the comic, he'd be like, got him. Because fuck yeah. Like, fuck yeah, man. Like, if I'm a kid watching something, I want the kid to be cool. I don't know why they didn't allow the kids to be cool, right? What was the problem there? Oh, but they're innocents. They're living in an apocalyptic zombie wasteland. What are you talking about? Murking a zombie in that situation is wholesome. It's wholesome to kill zombies. I'm just going to say it, right? If I saw a 12-year-old shoot a zombie dead and then go, all right, cool, like blow his gun, I'd be like, fuck yeah, cool kid, all right, right? Like, there's a kid that's got his shit together, right? That's strength, that's power, that's what I want to see. And and honestly, it just comes down to the fact that, like, conservatives are weak and wimpy. That's what it is, really. Like, it's this white fragility we've been talking about. That they can't handle the idea that my dear little Toby would never do such a thing. My dear little boy is innocent and I have to protect him and he's got the wares of the world. We need to protect him from such things. Meanwhile, fucking Toby's probably like going out with his buddies like throwing rocks at car windows and being sweet about it. right? Like, no, Walking Dead is another one of these just like betrayals where they take the source material and they're too weak and pathetic to actually commit to it. So they change it, right? Because Walking Dead gets pretty fucking dark, man. Like, there's some fucked up shit that happens in Walking Dead. And I knew that they were not going to commit to it. I knew that they weren't going to commit to it because our modern storytellers are weak. Like, they're just weak. We're a very weak, pathetic, sad little culture. Like, we're scared of telling real truths about how humanity would act and what humanity is in a situation. Read the comics, ignore the show. Season 1 was good because they actually did like a shot-for-shot recreation. And but then right after, basically they bail on the premise almost immediately. And it just becomes like, you want to see a lot of people cry. You want to see a lot of people be like, I can't believe we're in a dog. Yeah, go ahead, watch Walking Dead, right? Want to see humans being sweet and cool and dealing with actual difficult situations? Read the comic. Don't break my heart like that, John. I'm sorry, John. Sorry, I gotta tell the truth. I like talking about the about culture. I'm so happy that we're doing. You know, let's do it. Let's do a culture show today. This is fine. Eat an ad. Speaking of culture. Gerald's Game. I don't remember Gerald's Game. Have you seen GRRM's other show, the space one? I haven't. I didn't even know about this. George R. R. Martin had another show. Finish your shit, George. Finish your shit. You got another show? You got like a space show? George, finish your shit. Just shit it out. I think my favorite thing that anybody has done in regards to this concept, right, is Stephen King, on a Tuesday, in one day, wrote a fantasy novel. Of a decent size, too. It was decent size, right? And he dedicated it to George R. R. Martin. And the dedication was something like, come on, George. It was 100% Stephen King just being like, come on, George, like, finish this. You can do it. Finish it. Right? Now, the book that King wrote wasn't good. Nobody's sitting there being like, this was great fantasy writing. Like, no. But, like, he did write it. You know? Which is a real testament to Stephen King's prolific nature. Yeah, it was Sean Bean. He's destined and condemned to death. It's true. It's true. I think the greatest twist in any movie with Sean Bean in it would be if he made it to the end. I don't know why we're killing Sean Bean all the time. I don't know. How did he become the guy that he's just got to die? You see him in something and you're like, yeah, like he just seems to be that guy. And not in small scale productions or anything. Like literally, like Lord of the Rings killed him. James Bond killed him. Game of Thrones killed him. It just seems to me that I feel he's got to be picking scripts. Like it. Hey Sean, I got a great script for you. When do I die in the script? You'll die in the first act. Perfect, I'm in. That's got to be the conversation, right? That if they give, hey Sean, I got a great script for you. When do I die in the script? Oh, you don't. I'm not interested. It's got to be that way, right? There's got to be a conversation like that that's happening. John, you should watch Claymore, the anime. The main character is killed in the first few episodes. Then he wasn't the main character, was he? Was he? It's probably presented as, though. Claymore. Maybe it isn't fantasy people like. The Claymore manga is brilliant. Claymore is... I feel like Claymore is one of the, like, precursors to something. Am I right about this? That there's, like, Claymore, but everybody knows about this one? It's like if you liked, like, Full Metal Alchemist, well, it's Claymore that you actually should be watching. Is it one of those? I feel like it is. The Langoliers was one of my favorite King stories. Fantastic. I mean, Shawshank Redemption... The film Shawshank Redemption was extremely formative for me. I watched it when I was like 15, 16, and it really was like, oh, like, wow, you can tell these incredible, powerful stories these incredibly powerful stories through film and have it, like, I wouldn't have been able to articulate this as a kid, but it is definitely how I felt, which is, I felt my opinion of prisoners and the prison system change because of Shawshank Redemption. That I had one opinion before I saw it, and after I had another. And that's the reason I'm so fucking critical of all of this schlocky art bullshit that's coming out in today's modern society. Because in my view, the point of art, the point of watching these stories and reading and all of this, is to go into it as one person and come out of it a different person. And that and I've had this experience where I've gone in thinking one thing and I've left with a different perspective, or at least I've had my perspective weakened, right? That to me is what elevates some forms of art above others, is that they're even attempting to do that. They're even attempting to tackle an issue, to make it so that when you watch an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation, you'll have gone into it as one person and gone out of it as a different person. When you watch any of this shit, to me, and I respect and understand why people want distraction, which is essentially like this modern superhero kind of thing. Like, I get it. And it was actually Neil Gaiman that completely convinced me to stop being so judgmental of escapism. And he did it with a single line, right? The brilliant writer and the brilliant artist that he is. He said, the only people who don't want others to escape are jailers. And that was very, very profound to me. I had a real moment of just like, oh shit, like that's actually exactly right. That if a person feels they're in a position where they need to seek escape, then we should completely allow them to do that. And to shame someone or to belittle someone for seeking simply escape is unacceptable, because we are not jailers. And we should allow people to pursue art on their own terms. And simply the fact that they're pursuing art and the enjoyment of art should be enough for us. And if we're clever, we'll say to people who, let's say you find somebody who's like, man, I really liked the Avengers. Oh, you like the Avengers, eh? Well, why don't you try this other thing that's in the wheelhouse, but is actually good? More like Stephen King. Dude, I know Ligandese. I know. For those of you who don't know what Ligandese is talking about here, this was a heartbreaking moment for me, actually. Like, I am a bit heartbroken about it. I don't know what to think about it. In a conversation about the Ukrainian war, the Donbass war, Stephen King said of Stepan Bandera that he was a great man, right? Basically, allying himself with the Banderites, or at least saying of the Banderites that their belief in this Stepan Bandera character is acceptable. And the argument he used was very much like, well, the founding fathers owned slaves. We know that's true. That still made them great, but that doesn't change the fact that they're great men, right? Which I'm a bit like, it seems pretty pro-Americana there, bud. Like, seems pretty like, but I mean, it's Stephen King, right? Like, he's an American writer. So that was a tough one for me. I'll admit it. Because I've always sort of viewed Stephen King as a more progressive voice in the conversation, right? Somebody who's always trying to move the bar in the right direction. And it sucks to realize that Stephen King is probably still an imperialist, you know? Like, that was tough. Because Stephen King has been absolutely, like, first of all, I think he's brilliant. I think he's a brilliant author. The brilliance of Stephen King is that he can take any concept and make it good. Like he's just always, he's very capable. He's very, very capable. And stupid concepts too. Concepts that you would be, any other author would just be like, it would just be terrible. For some reason, like literally, there's a car sitting on a hill, and if you touch it, it eats you. Right? There's a guy who notices a finger coming out of his drain. Right? These are stupid concepts that when Stephen King writes them, they're awesome. They're excellent. They're haunting. They're terrifying. He just knows how to do it. And to realize that a talent such as that is still an imperialist is a tough pill to swallow. But at the same time, you know, like William Shakespeare was probably an imperialist. He was probably a fan of England's wars and all of this. Like, so it's difficult. It's difficult to separate the human from the art, and or it's difficult to accept the human in the art. You know? That at the end of the day, King is still just a person. It was season 3 of The Walking Dead. Yeah, dude, they just jumped the shark totally. The Walking Dead, I couldn't get into the TV show literally because I'd read a few of the comics before. I tried. The whole story was different from the get-go. No, it wasn't. Like, the whole him waking up in the hospital, that was basically shot for shot. Yeah, they changed it. So let's just agree to call the show a fucking wash. It's like the opposite of Glenn. I remember Glenn was a pussy who cried in the comics, but they made him competent in the show. Yeah, correct me if I think you're right. Like I'll never understand why showrunners think here is a book or a comic that is so popular and has such a big following that we can tell that story through the medium of film and television. So it's popular enough for us to do that, but not popular enough for us to maintain the integrity of the story that was told that made it popular in the first place. Like, shut the fuck up. Every single time they do it, I think it's a mistake. Even if they justify it somehow, I still think it's a mistake. Even the times where it makes a type of cleaner storytelling, I think it's a mistake. Unless it's literally the author themselves on the project making the change, I think it's a mistake. Like, it's usually about ego. It's usually about a mistrust of the subject matter. That's usually what it's about. And it isn't always ham-fisted. Like when what's his name? Shyamalan. When Shyamalan did Avatar: The Last Airbender and fucked it up completely, right? Because he didn't give a shit about the subject matter at all, and he like literally changed the main character's name from Aang to Ong, right? Because he's a fucking twerp who doesn't know what to do with a story. Like literally destroyed his own career for this like arrogant vanity project, trying to deal with something that he had no business dealing with in the first place. And like it always comes down to I don't respect the audience. That's always what it comes down to in my view. And there are very few occasions where that is not the case. That's why when I was approaching Sandman, I was very skeptical about the race and gender swapping, because it felt very disrespectful and felt disrespectful to the audience, and it felt disrespectful to the source material. But as I've been watching it, I'm like, no, they've done this on purpose. They're making a clear statement. I think that's what makes it so respectable, is that they're taking a look at those critiques and the criticisms of doing it, and they're saying, we hear you, and we're gonna do it anyway. And you have to respect it. You have to respect it. From artistic perspective, you have to respect it. I forget and don't care about the specifics, really. It was fundamentally different. The comics made sense to me. TV show did not. I could not relate. Well, because, like, at some point, you gotta realize that you're just watching an hour of people cry. Not in for it. You know what I mean? Like, not in for it. Like, we're gonna tell the real human story. Yeah, but it's gotta be cool, too, right? Like, it's gotta be rad. right? Like, I got to be interested. Like, if I wanted to watch someone cry for an hour, I'd just look in the mirror at night. I love culture days. Culture days are good. Yeah, look at the photos of kids working in mines and factories 100 years ago. They'd kill zombies for sure, dude. For sure. This is why I always say, like, there's a biblical story. Let's bring in the Bible. There's always the biblical story that atheist types like to throw in the face of Bible scholars, which is the story of I think it's Isaiah, right? He's wandering around in the wilderness and he comes upon a group of, the book says children, right? So he comes upon a book of children and they start following him and insulting him, calling him Baldy. And so he unleashes a pack of bears on them, right? And you can always tell who's the adult and who's got kind of the little kid brain when it comes to that story. I feel like it applies here to The Walking Dead, right? Because when I read that story, what I see is an old man alone in the wilderness encountering a group of wild animals called children, right? Like, you ever encountered a group of like eight-year-olds, right? Like, imagine 8-year-olds living by themselves in the wilderness, right? And they're harassing an old man. Like, what, you think they're just like licking ice cream cones, being like, ha ha, Baldy, ha ha, bear! That's what it's always presented. I'm like, no, bro. Like, these guys were going to kill him. If you don't understand that these kids, who are perfectly capable of killing a person, were going to kill him and take his shit, then I don't know how to communicate this to you. I don't know what to say to you anymore. Like, that's obviously what was going to happen. And it really does come down to the idea that, like, Midwestern housewives think kids are precious snowflakes that are incapable of this shit. When I hate to break it to you, no, they're not. No, they're not. If you put 8-year-olds into a fucking survival situation and told them, kill those things or die, they're gonna kill those things. Like, they might not be happy about it. It might take them a moment. They might cry. They might need to, like, bolster themselves and shit. Sure, I buy any of that, right? But if it came down to it, they're gonna fuck that thing up, right? They're human beings, goddammit. They're human beings. We are terrifying monsters. We are terrifying, monstrous creatures. We're not innocent snowflakes licking ice cream cones in the wilderness going, ha ha, you're Baldy, ha ha, ha. That's not how it fucking is, right? We are essentially monsters tromping around looking for our next kill. And like, take a look at our fucking culture. Take a look at who we are. And to present us as anything else is insulting. It's insulting. How dare you insult humanity like this? How dare you pretend like we're precious snowflakes? We are not. The eyes of the dragon. John, you aren't fat. It's your shirt. Buy classic tees. Thanks, John. Thanks, John. It's good to know. Uh-oh, we're getting the numbers. We're getting the numbers. Let me catch up. Sean Bean. Names are spelled very similar. Nothing sounds alike. Yeah. Why isn't it Sheen Bean? Or Sean Bon? Right? Hey, Demand Better. If he didn't die early enough, how would Sean Bean be able to maintain such a good work-life balance? Good point. Good point, dude. Attack on Titan was inspired by Claymore. Right. I'm never going to watch Claymore. Straight up. Attack on Titan is too much for me. It is. It's horrifying. It's horrifying. It's brilliant. Don't get me wrong. It's fucking brilliant. But it's horrible. It's horrible. Like, Attack on Titan, man. I just think about it and I'm like, oh, what. That's what happens to me when I think about Attack on Titan. Just like, oh, it's so Yeah, horrible. It's horrifying. Yeah, I'm not going to go into it anymore. So if you're telling me that there's a show called Claymore or a manga called Claymore that inspired Attack on Titan, I'm going to go, great. But I'm never watching it. It's never happening. Ugh, Attack on Titan. Ugh. Yeah, King's book on writing is inspiring. Yeah, it's really good. Well, because he's really good at breaking it down into like a very nuts and bolts kind of way. And really, I think the number one takeaway I took from that book is writing is about writing. Like, write. Right? And if you're not writing, you're not a writer. So it's really, you can talk about writing all you want, but unless you're actually writing, you're not a writer. Very, very straightforwardly. Okay. The best place for your telly is out the window. Anyone watch Prey? That's the new Predator, right? The photography is stunning. The feedback that I've gotten about Prey is that it passes, right? It's not like some of the other Predator bullshit that they put out. That they're like, yeah, okay. Like that's the feel I get about Prey out in the world. So, yeah, okay. What am I doing here? This is what I'm doing here. YouTube, David Lynch. There's 8 of you right now. Hope you're all doing well out in the world. Today's number. Let's do it. So what do we got? We got a 3, an 8, a 7, a 6, a 4, a 9.
Here we go for today's number.
I am gonna do...
2022.
What am I gonna do?
10 balls.
10 balls. Each ball has a number. David Lynch. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna do 5. I'm doing a 5. Doing a 5. Here we go. I feel the power. I feel the power of the 5. 5. Fuck you, David Lynch. Piece of shit, David Lynch. Anybody get it? No. We're extra stupid, all of us. Totally. Everybody eat it. Everybody eat it. You eat it. Anemone, you eat it. Conton, eat it. Methane, Nova Scotia. Eric, Alia, eat it. Major, eat it. The George R. R. Martin space show is really good. It's called Night Flyers. Just finish your shit, George. King's Book on Titan. Yeah. The best place for the telly is out the window. I already said this. Anyone watch Prey? I drove school bus. Kids are not darlings yet. Rabid feral monster murdering children. This is the content I tune in for. Yes, absolutely. Like, absolutely. Did Children of the Corn not teach us that the second you take a concept and then fill it with kids, it makes it way scarier? Like, come on. We've all seen that horror film where there's like a little kid singing somewhere, right? Ring around the rosy, and you're just like, nope. I admire, and I admire Attack on Titan because the horror of Attack on Titan is not like jump scare violence, right? It is, don't get me wrong, it's a gruesome show. It is a gruesome and grisly show, without a doubt. If you don't know Attack on Titan, the whole premise of the show is that humanity has retreated into it's a medieval society that has retreated into giant walled cities to protect themselves from the appearance of these gigantic titans that are immune to their attacks and their damage except through a weak spot in the back of their neck. And so to kill one of these titans, they've trained like high level squads of like basically like Spider-Man kind of glider sort of people who are doing highly dangerous things in order to kill one of these. And so it's very difficult for them to take on one of these titans. And so they've managed to protect themselves behind these walls the titans are not able to get into until one day a special Titan comes and smashes down the outer wall, and so the horror, of course, comes from the brutal reality, which they do not back off on, right? It is like close-ups, and they show you everything. The brutal reality of not being the top of the food chain, right? The brutal reality of being the hunted instead of the hunter, right? And how terrifying and horrible such a reality would actually be, right? And the show is brilliant for putting you in that place. It gives you a lot of sympathy and empathy for creatures that are hunted, right, in your reality. It gives a lot of empathy in that regard, I feel, because it puts you in that place. Yeah, there's some really brutal shit that happens in that show, dude. Yeah, there's some real fucking scary, brutal shit that happens. I haven't yet seen the ending of Attack on Titan because I watched the first season and was like, I'm good. I'm good. I don't need a second season of this. Towards season 4, Attack on Titan takes a dramatic. Yeah, I'm never gonna get to it. I'm never, ever. Nope. For me, like, Breaking Bad was like this for me. That I watched the first season of Breaking Bad and I saw where it was going and was just like, yeah, I'm gonna fall into a pretty heavy depression if I keep watching this show. And I recently, like within the last year, actually, did sit down and finally watched all of Breaking Bad. Because I feel like I had like absorbed enough from the culture to like understand where it was. And so I watched it. I'm happy that I did. Breaking Bad is a brilliant show. Absolutely brilliant show. But Attack on Titan is very, very much like that for me. That it's like, it's very triggering. It can definitely put me into a depression state. Yeah. Attack on Titan, 5 minutes of show, 10 minutes of rehashing. There is a bit of that too, isn't there, Methane? But that's not unique to Attack on Titan. That feels very indicative of the genre. That anime does, like, anime is like, it understands that it's about taking as much time. Like there's a book series that I read that did this so excellently. It's Mary Stewart's Arthurian legend. She did a trilogy telling the story of King Arthur from the perspective of Merlin, and she really takes her time doing everything, really describing all of the actions and taking you through absolutely every little thing, right? Like it's not enough for Merlin to like put his coat on and walk out the door. He's got to slowly get off the chair, which creaks as he does so. The floorboards give way as he walks towards the hook. He pulls the jacket off of the hook, fluffing it out to get any debris off of it, checking the pockets to ensure he has everything he needs, slipping his left arm in gently and swinging the jacket over and sliding his arm into the other hole, setting it in place, ensuring once again that he has everything he needs. He sets out towards the door. Like, literally, that's what she does. It's like an extending of all things, which, when you describe that to someone, they think, that sounds tedious as fuck. That sounds, holy shit, like, Jesus Christ, get on with it, right? But what it does, what it means, is that when you finally get to the action, like when the epic shit is happening, and she's still doing that, she's still like, Arthur looks across the field and sees Morgoth, or whatever her name is. Steadily he draws his sword, and you're just like, oh shit, here we go. And it's like that same pace, but like on this epic scale. It's very cool. It's very, very, very cool. And I feel like anime does that a lot. right? You think like Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball's like the example that we all make fun of, right? Like Dragon Ball, where he's just like Goku is like going Super Saiyan for like a whole episode, right? Like that's the one that we all make fun of, where we're all like, yeah, he goes Super Saiyan and he's Super Saiyan for a whole episode. But what's important, like we all know how epic this is. Like we've all been waiting for this, and so as he's going Super Saiyan, we see everybody's reaction to it. And all of the characters that are involved get their little moment of being like, oh my goodness, it's happening, right? And so that whole process, and anime's really good at this. They never, ever forget to pay attention to any of the characters. They really understand that, like, no, someone wants to know what Vegeta is thinking about this. Someone wants to know what Krillin thinks about this. Someone wants to know. And these are important character moments. Not only is this an important character moment for Goku going Super Saiyan, but it's also equally as important to characters like Krillin and Vegeta and the rest of them, because it's altering their reality too. And so I feel like anime does this a lot, and it's for a reason. I'm seeing it a lot in One Piece. One Piece does this a lot, where they're really like taking their time getting to everything. Like one of the tropes of One Piece is that the main character, I'm blanking on his name all of a sudden. Eric, you can let me know. He always somehow gets separated from the core central combat. Like the villain is here, and Luffy is like way off in the distance somewhere, and he's trying to get to the thing, right? And it takes him a lot of time and there's a lot of struggle, and he has like built-in character traits, like he has bad sense of direction, right? Just finished with the freeing of her kingdom, the purple hair girl's kingdom. I'm blanking on that as well. Like literally they just beat that guy, and now they're going into the next thing. And so what it means though is it creates a sense of tension. Vivi, yeah, that sense of tension, the sense of tension is what convinced me finally that Sandman was above the rest of it. Yeah, like there is a there's an episode, the diner episode in Sandman, where there's this constant tension that's steadily building, and it builds because everyone is steadily just taking their time. It's a slow burn that just steadily stews and builds and just gets bigger and bigger and bigger as you go on, and every step is just itsy bitsy and little and tiny, and so they really earn their ending and they really earn where they go with it. And I feel like modern movies don't do this anymore. There's no room for silence, for quiet, for building tension. And if you take a look at Marvel movies, they do everything they can to diffuse tension. They don't want any character at any moment, at any time, to dwell in the reality of what's happening. They don't want anything to be like, oh my god, like the stakes are so high. Like they never want that. Somebody always needs to just do a fart joke or something, right? They just need to do that. John, did you saw coming the new Straw Hat at the end of Alaspa? You're gonna have to help me out with that, bro. You're gonna have to help me out with that phrase right there, dude. One Piece is fun. That's the truth, dude. Like One Piece is actually fun. It's long. There's a lot of it, but it's a lot of fun. And I think that that's ultimately the true success of One Piece is that when One Piece starts, you really are just like following the misadventures of Luffy, the rubber man who wants to become the king of pirates. And so his childish ambitions, and they are, like, he acts as a child acts, and then very steadily the show grows him up. And all of the other characters also grow up as the show goes on. And it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of fun there. Did you see coming that Nico Robin becoming the new Straw Hat at the end of Alabasta? You know what, bud? Maybe I'm not there. Maybe I'm like one episode behind or something. Because I'm actually blanking on what you're talking about. My bad. And yeah, One Piece is good. I understand why it's as popular as it is, right? And I think the thing... Nah, I don't care, Eric. That's fine. There's actually studies that's been done on spoilers, by the way, which is people who have material spoiled tend to enjoy the material more, not less. It's interesting. We all sort of assume that if it's spoiled, I'm going to enjoy it less, but it actually turns out the opposite is true. That most people, if something is spoiled, will enjoy it more. So if no one has ever seen Star Wars, and it gets spoiled that, oh, Darth Vader is Luke's father, people in the moment of the spoil might go, oh, but when it comes time to actually watch the movie, they actually tend to enjoy it more. It's an odd little quirk of the human psyche. I can't explain why that's the case, but it is the case that if you find out that in Game of Thrones Eddard Stark dies at the end of the first season, or the first book if you prefer, when the spoil happens you might go, ah, but as you're watching the show you actually enjoy it more because the anxiety of what's going to happen is removed, and so you feel less anxious and less depressed when it occurs. Yeah. No, but One Piece is a great time. I recommend it to everybody. Okay, looks like I've caught up with the chat. You guys are no more conversation. There was some about Better Call Saul. Better Call Saul is good. Is Better Call Saul funnier than Breaking Bad? It looks like they're going more comedy with it. It looks like it's more about the kind of absurdity, right? That was one of the things that Breaking Bad always did very well. Initially, the first couple of seasons of Breaking Bad, there was a lot of absurdity built into the structure of what was happening. Like, things were occurring and you were like, this is absurd. And still believable, but definitely in the realm of absurdity. And those absurdities faded out as the show went on. Because the absurdity of what was happening earlier was because of sort of the buffoonishness or the cluelessness of the protagonist, Walter White, as he attempted to make this happen. And that absurdity eventually was forced to turn to sinister perspective. That he was no longer acting from a place of absurdity in kind of a buffoonish and tragic sort of way often, and instead those absurdities became a drive for his struggle to gain power, which is ultimately what it's about. That the question of Walter White is, would he have done all of that without the initial spark? Would he have eventually done it anyway? Did he need the excuse of he has cancer and he needs a way to find money? Or would he have eventually done this anyway? Right? That's the real question if you ask me about Walter White. That's okay, Eric. That's okay. So, whereas Better Call Saul, it looks like they're happier to exist in an absurdist space, which I think is fine. Like, I think that character makes a lot of sense. as a window into the absurdity of the American legal system, the absurdity, and Breaking Bad was always brilliant for this. Like, it's absurd that Walter White's cancer treatments weren't covered. It was absurd that he's a teacher that's so underpaid. Like, it's the show really brings forward and highlights a lot of dramatic social issues that make Walter White a very sympathetic character for a while, right? That it isn't until you get into later seasons that you're no longer watching because you're rooting for Walter White. You're watching to see what happens to Walter White. That everyone at some point when watching Breaking Bad has a moment when they finally turn on Walter. That he starts as a sympathetic, likable hero who's doing something that we all kind of dream of doing, and we all kind of think like, hey, that'd be what a crazy thing. How's he going to get out of it? All that kind of stuff. And it isn't until later that you realize he's not going to get out of it, that he's not interested in getting out of it. And everyone has a moment when when Walter White ceases to be a sympathetic kind of anti-hero or even hero, and becomes a villain. They really do an expert job of it. They really made it work. And I just don't think they'll recreate that with Better Call Saul. Like, Saul has always been he's a villain. He's a low-level villain. Like, he's a lawyer thug, is what he is. All right. Well, the chat's gone cold. How many people are even in the chat at the moment, I wonder? I can actually see. Look at this. There's only 5 of you right now. Oh no, the channel's collapsing. Oh my god, everything's horrible. Well, let's talk about LA made it illegal to be homeless in 20% of the city. 6 things are prohibited by this new legislation that's coming through. Sitting. $237 fine for sitting. Sleeping in public. $237 fine. Lying. So if you're lying on the ground, you can be fined $237. Placing. So if you put something somewhere, you can be fined. Guess how much? Yeah, that's right, $237. Storing. Maintaining personal property in public. Right? So if you're fixing stuff or doing stuff, you can be fined $237. Here's what happened in the LA City Hall chambers ahead of the vote to criminalize homelessness. Riot cops flooded LA City Hall chambers ahead of the vote. Yeah. Being a human being, $237, please. Like, this is a very overt, obvious, like, literally, you can be fined $237 for existing in public spaces. Like, really, really, really fucking think about that. Like, if you're fixing a basket, if you're just putting something, if you're just lying down, if you're sitting on the ground, like, no one should tolerate this. Like, are you kidding? And imagine if John Tory tried to pass a law that made it so that it's illegal to sit on the ground. $237 fine. And this is the response. Like, you sure you're not a fascist society? You're absolutely dead positive you're not a fascist society? Looks pretty fascist to me. Looks fairly concerning to me. Meanwhile, Gen Z and Millennials would rather be unemployed than unhappy at work. More than half of employees aged 18 to 24, a demographic classified as Gen Z, say they would quit a job that prevented them from enjoying their lives, a new survey suggests. 40% of this demographic said they would rather be unemployed than unhappy working in a job they didn't like, according to the 2022 Randstad Work Monitor report. The survey polled 35,000 employees across 34 markets and showed dramatically changing attitudes in the workplace, potentially sparked by the pandemic, as exemplified by the Great Resignation. The younger generations aren't just paying lip service to work-life balance and personal fulfillment, either. 40% of Gen Z and millennial correspondents said they had quit a job because it didn't fit with their personal life, compared to 33% of those polled overall. The study also outlined the top 5 work priorities for employees, with an emphasis on what will help employers attract and retain Gen Z and millennial workers. Lifestyle and happiness, aligning values, employee empowerment, job flexibility, and self-improvement and professional development. Like, yeah, people don't want to be treated like shit. Yeah, they preemptively had cops at the court. Love it. Yeah, because they're making it illegal to sit down in public. Like, yeah, people are right. Like, people are right to revolt against that. People are right to revolt against that. And the power structure knows that what they're doing is shitty. Right? And it's clearly a violation of anybody's rights. Like, are you kidding me? You can't sit down in public? Shut up. That's so fucking stupid. And you want to pretend like your system has validity. Like, no. Like, fucking no. Yes, here's a great one. Soft landing is wishful thinking at this stage. Former Bank of Canada economist. The Bank of Canada hiked its overnight interest rate by a full percentage point earlier this summer, a move so large and so swift that it would have been unimaginable not too long ago. This week, on Down to Business, Jean-Paul Lamb, a professor in the University of Waterloo's Department of Economics and a former assistant chief economist in the Bank of Canada, talks about interest rates and inflation. Lamb says he thinks the aggressive tightening of the interest rates in Canada and the US and elsewhere is a sign that central banks fell behind the curve and missed crucial signals about the economy. But if true, where does that leave us? When will inflation die down? Especially when some of the longer-term causes, such as the pandemic, persist. Like, the collapse of the economy is being done on purpose, right? The Bank of America memo told us straight out that their goal is to collapse the economy and make things worse for everybody so that they can get cheap labor. That's the goal, right? And if they collapse the economy, it just means the rich are going to be able to get cheap assets, right? So they're happy to collapse this economy, right? Which is exactly what they're doing. And it's being done on purpose with the blessing of all of the entire establishment. They're fine with it. They want it to happen. That's why they're doing it, right? If they didn't want to do it, they would do the thing that they would need to do to stabilize it, which is tax the rich. Pretty straightforwardly. Milo, buddy, you've eaten. You're fine. Got a little dog here staring at a food bowl. Just being like, food bowl. And of course, here in Ontario, what have I been saying the entire time? Right? What have I been saying the entire fucking time? Right? Ontario Health Minister won't rule out privatization as option to help ER crisis. Asked if the government is considering privatization, Sylvia Jones says all options are on the table. Ontario's health minister isn't ruling out privatization in healthcare as the government looks at ways to deal with a major staff shortage, straining hospitals across the province. When asked if the government is considering privatization, Sylvia Jones says all options are on the table. Emergency departments across Ontario have had to close for hours or days at a time this summer, which healthcare officials say is due to a nursing staffing crisis. Jones says she has been in talks with hospital corporations across the province in an effort to fix the problem, to privatize the problem. In a statement Wednesday, Ontario opposition New Democratic Party health critic France Gillinis said the party was horrified to hear that privatization is under consideration. We are now deeply concerned that the reason this conservative government is refusing to act on healthcare is because they'd rather just privatize healthcare. Jones has said the government is exploring innovation and opportunities in Ontario and is considering changes to the health system, but has not specified what those would be. Advocates have urged Premier Doug Ford to repeal public sector wage restraint legislation that he introduced in 2019, saying it's harming efforts to recruit and retrain nurses, which is the point. The goal is to privatize the system. That's the point. The point is to privatize the system. That if a system exists that doesn't allow capitalists to exploit people, it needs to be attacked and assaulted ruthlessly, which is all these conservatives have done, and liberals and NDP. That's all they've done, right? That they're not interested in building robust public options. They're not interested in solving the problem. They're interested in making as much money for themselves as they can get, straightforwardly. There's no mystery here. It's not like we're sitting here scratching our heads, being like, "Oh, what's happening?" Wealthy psychopaths are privatizing public infrastructure to make more money for themselves because they don't care about the prosperity of the nation. They care about their own personal prosperity and wealth. That's what it's about. And then they turn around and say to us that it's actually good because that wealth will trickle back down into the society, even though it doesn't. There's literally no evidence to suggest that's the case. And so we're just living in a religious ideology that says, give more money to wealthy people. That'll make everything so much better. Stop it, buddy. Come on. And the result of it is embarrassing shit, right? Like, literally, this story blows me away, you guys. Like, this is fundamentally stupid. That, like, America created a battery, right? Unlike batteries in cell phones or even cars, these batteries could charge and discharge energy for as long as 30 years. And this particular design seemed to hold enough energy to power a house. Researchers pictured people plunking them down next to their air conditioners, attaching solar panels to them, and everyone living happily ever after off the grid. Right? They thought the batteries would be the next great American success story, but that's not what happened. Today, this warehouse is shuttered and empty. All the employees who worked here were laid off. And across the world, a Chinese company is making the batteries in Dalian, China. The Chinese company didn't steal this technology. It was given to them by the United States Department of Energy. An NPR investigation found the department allowed the technology and jobs to move overseas, violating its own licensing rules while failing to intervene on behalf of U.S. workers in multiple instances. Like, this is a fundamental embarrassment for America. That they had this technology, and instead of actually using it, Department of Energy officials declined NPR's request for an interview and wouldn't explain how technology that cost U.S. taxpayers $15 million ended up in China. But after NPR sent department officials detailed questions laying out the timeline of events, officials terminated the license and gave it to the Chinese company. In a statement, officials said the department, quote, takes American manufacturing obligations extremely seriously and is now, quote, undertaking an internal review of the licensing of vanadium battery technology. Yeah, capitalists rarely get blamed for outsourcing, but they will sell their own country out for a sliver of profit. Yeah. And this story shows you the degree that they're willing to do it, right? It shows you the lengths they're willing to go. That there truly is no bottom of this barrel, right? There is no bottom of this pit. That they could literally, like, the phrase is, kill the goose that lays the golden egg, right? That's what these capitalists do. That in their minds, you're killing the goose that kills the golden egg so that you can eat one meal. And forget about the golden egg laying. Forget about that, right? Don't foster that. Don't build that. Don't invest in that. right? Don't feed the goose. Don't protect the goose, right? Make sure you kill that goose so you can get a good meal. That's how these capitalists actually think. And it's obvious. Like it's shockingly obvious. And I just don't know how. Yeah, but capitalism creates innovation, right? It doesn't matter if it does, because they're just going to give any of that innovation to anybody else for a tiny sliver of profit, right? They're not going to actually build the infrastructure. They're not actually going to take the time. They're not going to hire people. They're not going to have even the most basic of visions to actually utilize any of that innovation. They just turn around and sell it to the highest buyer, who will in turn and the turnaround on this is that, like, a long-term battery that has a solar panel attached sounds very appealing to someone like me, right? Sounds really interesting, right? And I would absolutely love to be able to buy that from a Canadian or even an American manufacturer, right? But that's not what's going to happen. So we're going to take all our money, we're going to give it to who? The Chinese, right? And you guys know me, I'm not anti-China, but I definitely see how that's a stupid fucking thing to do and how backwards it is. Like, we are regressing as the Chinese are advancing. And we are going to be buying all of this technology, all of it. We're going to be buying from the Chinese. So we're literally going to just be pouring all of our money towards China. And it's going to completely bankrupt us. In one episode of SpongeBob, good source material, friend, Mr. Krabs literally traded SpongeBob to the Flying Dutchman for a few change from his pocket. Yep. Dude, like, SpongeBob SquarePants actually has enormous, like, it's a very class-conscious show. Like, it's very aware of the story that it's telling. And it's aware of who SpongeBob is. It knows who Mr. Krabs is. It knows who Squidward is, right? Capitalism don't want thing like that anyway, because for capitalism it's more profitable to have things break more often and to make them long-lasting. Yep. The light bulb is a perfect example for that. And also, like, why would you want people to be able to go off grid, right? If you force them on grid, then you can constantly meter them, right? If you sell them a one-time purchase that they can use to power their house, right? For forever in perpetuity with just like a solar panel, well, then you can't meter them anymore, right? Why would capitalists want that? So this is just a very clear-cut example of how capitalism gets in the way of civilization. That it's not interested in building civilization. It's interested in building profit for itself. Yet this tech that was given away is antithetical to metering. Yeah, innovation annihilates old labor and consumer relationships. Yeah. No, and look, the reality is that any move forward in technology really reveals that capitalism itself is a dead system that doesn't function, right? That every breakthrough after breakthrough after breakthrough shows that, oh, the trouble is capitalism. That we could do really amazing things if it wasn't for needing to ask this psychopath permission, right? And of course the psychopath is going to say no, because his goal is to maintain his own power, right? And if the question is, hey, should we empower the entire populace with this really great device? Or should we keep things as they are so everyone has to keep sucking on your tit? Well, what is he going to say? We know the answer. Yep. China makes this tech because they aren't interested in forever markets. Yeah, like China is interested in building a civilization. That's the key difference. That's the key difference that we here in the West do not understand. We literally do not have the most basic understanding of civilization building. We don't know what civilizations are. We don't care to know what civilizations are, right? Capitalists would go like, her, that sounds like nerd shit. That's what their response would be, right? That to them, the only thing that matters is numbers in my bank account. That's it. So forget about building high-speed rail. right? Forget about building quantum computing. Forget about building fusion reactors. Forget about building any kind of like space infrastructure. Forget about doing anything serious, right? And here's a great story that really illustrates this, right? Elon Musk admitted to his biographer that the reason the Hyperloop was announced, even though he had no intention of pursuing it, was to try to disrupt the California high-speed rail project and get in the way of that actually succeeding. So here's a clear-cut case in point of a capitalist getting in the way of actual innovation and change in his society for money, for his own personal wealth and prestige, right? Which is going to happen over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, while the losers that defend capitalism keep pretending as though it's not happening. Yeah, capitalism innovated the brilliant concept of planned obsolescence. Yeah, Comrade Hakim. Yeah, like that's capitalist innovation, right? Capitalist innovation is find a way to get people to buy the same product over and over and over again, right? It's not enough for them to buy one iteration. They've got to buy a bunch of iterations and a new one every year, right? And they've built it so that the technology automatically over time degrades on purpose. They know that it does it. They've built it in on purpose. And this is considered innovative. Yeah, I feel you, Cotton. Fun fact about Elon Musk, there's a huge chance that in October he will lose most of his wealth. I hope so. What's causing you to say that, Eric? I know that it's probably an inevitability because much of Elon Musk's wealth, like the value that he's at, is the con that he has swindled everybody with. We're going to get to Mars. Here's an electric car. It's all coming. Like the valuation of everything is all pinned on the idea that he's actually going to deliver. And he's not going to deliver because he's just a fraud, right? That's like his entire shtick is just buy other people's shit and say it's yours, right? That's his whole shtick. You don't need to be a genius to do this, right? I actually think like it's pretty base. It's like pretty basic kind of operating, right? Like you can have an intelligence of like, you can have an IQ of 80, right? You can be a very sub-intellectual person, like I think Elon Musk actually is, right? Like, I'll say it over and over and over again, man. Watch his appearance on Joe Rogan's show. Watch it when he went on Joe Rogan's show. Just watch it and watch it without the, oh my God, it's Elon Musk. And don't take seriously Joe Rogan jerking him off the whole time, right? And just listen to him without the mythical worship and just accept that he's just a person. And you realize pretty fast, doesn't take a lot of time to put two and two together, that this guy's stupid. Like he's not intelligent. I don't even think he's average intelligence. I think he's actually quite dumb. And the only reason he's gotten to where he wanted to, where he's gotten to, is because he's figured out something that a 5-year-old figures out, which is that if you lie, you get things, right? Like any 5-year-old in the world can figure this shit out. Like, just lie. But what's making you say that in October he'll lose most of his wealth? What do you know that I don't know? Here's a fun one. Here's an absolutely fun one. Controversial group creates private security force to guard former church. TUPC's move incredibly concerning for Lower Town residents, Community Association says. A controversial organization operating out of a historic Ottawa church has set up what it calls a private security force, saying it was necessary because police weren't responding to its concerns quickly enough. The United People of Canada said it has identified people it claims have committed crimes targeting the group, and is prepared to ensure the rule of law is upheld within our lawful authority, according to William Comer, one of its directors. What they're not actually telling you is that this United Peoples of Canada organization comes out of the Freedom Convoy, right? The Freedom Convoy and its backers bought this church, right? And it's establishing itself in this church, And now they're building a private security force. Right? Totally normal. Normal thing to do. Right? Security and investigative agencies in Ontario must have a valid license, but the Ministry of the Solicitor General, which oversees them, says it hasn't heard from the TUPC about its force. The ministry can confirm it has not had any contact with this group and is not aware of any plans this group may have for private security forces in Ottawa, a spokesperson wrote in an email to CBC. So essentially, the Freedom Convoy people are taking over a church. They bought a church as a base of operations in Ottawa, and now they're literally building a private security force. A gang. Literally. Just like a thuggish gang, right? And what's that thuggish gang going to do? It's going to terrorize people, right? Police service inadequate, TUPC claims. Yeah, because the police aren't working for them, right? Why aren't the police working for them? Because they're a fascist organization, right? It won't be too much longer until, there's going to be big sigils and stuff on this, right? It won't be too much longer. See this thing that's on his chest right here? Get used to that. Get used to that. Get familiar with that. The impending sale of St. Bridget's, which TUPC calls the Embassy, isn't sitting well in some of the community. The Lower Town Community Association has called on the city to step in and either buy the heritage property itself or provide funding for a local organization to do so. Community members also raised questions about possible links to the past winter's Freedom Convoy. Comer has flatly denied any connection to the protest. However, one of TUPC's directors has shared posts appearing to show support for the convoy in social media, and a second described itself as an advisor to Dwayne Litch, the husband of convoy leader Tamara Litch. The group began hosting community conversations about the convoy this week. Wednesday's session is an open mic event with Brian Dirksen, the trucker that never left, the group's Facebook page shows. According to a post on Monday, the talks are sponsored by a website called Vaccine Injury Awareness. The post says TUPC is looking forward to bringing a variety of community members together for the events. However, it also states that if TUPC feels someone's being disrespectful, they may be asked to leave immediately. If they don't, they may be subject to arrest without warrant under the powers granted to the United People of Canada by the Trespass to Property Act. Comer said no such arrests have been made so far. Bigris, head of the community association, says she doesn't see how TUPC's message of being an inclusive organization that's open to talking can be reconciled with its security force and mention of arrests. They're issuing threats, is what they're doing, she said. When somebody threatens you, it doesn't exactly make you ready to have a positive conversation. No shit. When Musk made his officer to buy Twitter for $44 billion, decided to back out of the deal, Twitter decided to take him to court, yeah. If the judge agrees that Twitter, Elon Musk must sell his shares from Tesla, and the more shares that he sells, the less of the values the shares become, which leads him to buy more shares to the point where he would no longer be the majority shareholder at Tesla. This is taking place in October. Dude, that'd be hilarious. This is what I'm talking about, though. Why did Musk get into this buying Twitter thing in the first place? It's stupid. Who cares? For real, who gives a shit about Twitter? Who gives a shit at all? And so him getting involved in this Twitter shit, he's just doing it so he can wag his dick about, right? And the reality is that he'll still be a billionaire. Maybe he won't be the richest billionaire of all the rich billionaires, but he'll still be a fucking billionaire. It's all just dick waving at this point. And Musk, I've always believed him to be really, really stupid. And the number one reason why I think Musk is stupid is that he really wants people to know that he's this wealthy billionaire guy. He wants everybody to know, and he wants everybody to think he's cool. Right? I can't think of a stupider thing for a billionaire to do. Are you kidding me? I wouldn't want anybody to know about me, man. If I'm a billionaire, I don't want people to fucking know who I am. I don't want them to be able to find me. I don't want them to be able to put two and two together and realize that I'm the one fucking them over. Like, I don't want them to have any sense that there is a billionaire, let alone that I'm the billionaire, right? Absolutely not. I'm not gonna do interviews. I'm not gonna tell people what I think about shit. I'm not gonna fucking get involved, right? I'm gonna be quiet, off on the side, right? I'm gonna live my own life, right? Make decisions that I think are good for myself. I really admire. You want to see a billionaire that I actually think is extremely smart? I think David Thompson is one of the smartest billionaires because nobody fucking knows about him. Like, he's literally the richest man in Canada. Owns the Globe and Mail, owns Global TV. Nobody knows about him. He's invisible. Like, and here's a guy who, if he wants his opinion published, right, he's got a news station that will publish his opinion as the board of editors or the editor board, right? And just send it out into the world. And so here's a guy who doesn't care about fame. He obviously wants to influence the culture. He obviously wants to be involved to a certain degree, but he doesn't want the spotlight to be placed on him. And he's done an absolutely brilliant job of ensuring that nobody knows who he is. I've had this same conversation over and over and over again here in Canada, where I'll get talking about this stuff, and I'll just say to people, "Hey, do you know who David Thompson is?" And the answer is always no. I think I've had one person say yes, that they know who David Thompson is in all the years that I've been doing that. It's just like, that's brilliant. Like, that's brilliant. That one of the things that I'll say again and again, like, the billionaire class is full of losers and psychos and just mama's boys and people who are just in the right place at the right time, right? Just reprehensible, grotesque figures. But I actually respect David Thompson. I think that David Thompson knows who he is. He knows what he is. And he understands that the best way to go about being the thing that he is quietly. Just existing and quietly being there. Let somebody else take the heat. Doesn't need to be me. Yeah, Marx was a capitalist. He wrote a whole book about it. Yeah. Like, that's stupid, right? Like, that's a stupid thing to say. Like, you gotta believe that he, like, on the one hand, it's like, if it's a joke, right? If that's how he meant it, as a joke, it's actually not a bad joke. Because it's got the right level of stupid, right? You know how sometimes things can be so stupid that they become good? You know, they become brilliant in their stupidity? Like, the Stooges are like this, right? The Stooges are stupid. They're so fucking stupid. But they're brilliant. They're brilliant in how stupid they are. And I really, you really respect it when you see it, right? And that phrase right there, Marx was a capitalist, he wrote a whole book about it, is so stupid that it becomes brilliant. You know? The trouble is that I don't think he is saying it as a joke. I think he's saying it seriously. To try to convince people. And, like, he has said on Twitter, I'm surprised you didn't bring this one out, Gino. Good to see you, by the way, bud. I'm blown away that he hasn't, that he said, we'll coup whoever we want to coup. I believe he said that in about Bolivia. Like, he said that in public, on Twitter. We'll coup who we want to coup. Like, these guys are just being open about their imperialism. They're just telling you that they're doing it. Like when John Bolton confessed to doing it. When John Bolton straight up just said, yeah, I've couped governments. Yeah, you gotta be a smart guy to coup governments. Right? And he confessed to being a war criminal in order to dunk on Trump. Like, yeah, it definitely reads like a joke, but he doubled down on it in the next comments. Yeah, exactly, right? Like, exactly. This is who Musk is. right? Like, he's a clown that doesn't realize he's a clown. He thinks that he's a serious person, but he's not. Yeah, by the way, I'm actually a socialist. Just not the kind that shifts resources from the most productive to the least productive, pretending to do good while actually causing harm. True socialism seeks greatest good for all. And of course, greatest good for all means give all the money to one guy and the wealth will trickle down, right? Like, this is fucking brain rot. This is fucking brain dead brain rot. And Elon Musk's entire ethos, his entire raison d'etre. Because the question is, why do any of this? Why seek fame? Why want everybody to know who you are? Right? And it is because he just has significant daddy issues. Like, that's really all it is. Like, what Elon Musk wants more than anything is for he and his daddy to go for like a nice walk in the park, and then for his daddy to like tuck him in at night, give him a little kiss on the head, and say, "Elon, I'm proud of you." And that's and like look at him as he like goes to turn out the lights, and like reenact a scene from like The Princess Bride, where he's like, "Daddy, can we read the book again tomorrow?" As you wish. Right? That's what he wants. That's what he wants more than anything. And he's not going to get it, right? And so he's constantly just trying to convince himself that he has value through adoration from others. That's all it is, right? Like, he can't... Oh, thank you, damn boxes. Have a good night to you as well. Every little bit helps, but I really appreciate that. Good opportunity to say like, share, subscribe. Oh, hey, I completely forgot about ad break. That's the last one. Sorry, guys. I don't like doing it. Thank you so much, Dan Boxes. I appreciate it, bud. Every little bit helps. Every little bit helps. That's so nice, man. It is. It's really nice when somebody just, like, flicks a little coin my way like that. I like how it comes up in the chat. I like how it's, like, saying... I like how you're saying, have a good night. To you as well, friend. Right? Just feels nice. You know, feels so nice. Yeah, fun fact, Elon Musk's first business received a $26K grant from his dad and a $10K grant from his mother. Yeah, in 96 was the value of $66K in today's money. Yeah, and that's just chump change, right? For his family, that's just chump change. Like, Elon Musk was always going to be successful at anything he wanted to do. Hey, Watson, how you doing? You're a doorknob. You are the one, in fact, that is a doorknob. And a family friend real estate agent who is successful is the CEO of that company. Yeah. Like, look, if you are a wealthy family, right, you can't fail. It's very, very simple, right? Take a look at Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro in any position you look at it, like, he comes from a rich family. The reason he's able to go to Harvard at all and all of these places is because he's got a rich family. The reason why, like, he's like, I want to go and give lectures. I want to go give lectures. I'm super smart. I think I'm smarter than my professors. I'm going to go give lectures. Right? And why is he able to do that? Because his family is rich. And so he goes and gives weird little white supremacist lectures, right, to college kids who don't have the wherewithal or the capability to actually look at him and go, you're a fraud. Like, Shapiro's a massive fraud. And the only reason he's as successful as he is because his family's rich, right? And so the same is obviously true of someone like Elon. Yeah, what is funny is Elon's dad knows he's doing this, yeah. Just got done with an interview with the WSWS on the issue we have at my workplace. Oh, really? Let me know if that gets published, Watson. I'll 100% read that. That's amazing. Yeah, dude, you've been talking about that situation. Someone died recently, didn't they? Like, that's intense, dude. Like, that's real shit, man. Like, that's real shit. Like, we're in here talking about fucking, like, Ghostbusters and shit today. Like, today's, like, really, like, faffy. Today's a very faffy sort of a day. and you can tell by the numbers. Usually when I get into Faffy days, yeah, you can see it. Faffy days, Faffy Faff. What's the concurrent viewers? 7. 43 views, pretty good though. I got to get better at looking at the analytics. You know, I got to get a little bit better. There's a real drop off here. I wonder what happened right here. This must have been, I don't know what happened there. Anyway. I don't usually like to look at the analytics because I get very anxious. I get very, like, anxiety-ridden about it. 3 people in the last 24 months? Are you kidding me, dude? That's fucking unacceptable. That's fucking unacceptable. Like, you need chat mods? The chat's not big enough for me to have mods. There's not enough going on in the chat for me to have mods. I can control it enough. We'll see if things get really ridiculous. Isn't that right, Milo? Isn't that right? Isn't that right? If things get really ridiculous, we'll see. We'll see. Right now, I like how the chat is. It's slow enough that I can keep up with it, and I can actually talk to you guys. Right? I do worry that if this gets bigger, that eventually it'll be too much. There'll be too much going on. I'm going to really try to discourage just, like, vomit. You know how when you go to, like, Hassan's chat and it's just, like, a stream of people being like, hey, yeah, heart. I'm going to really try to be like, hey, yo, like, no, don't do that, please. Have you considered editing some of these conversations to make them easier for consumption? Oh, like, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I tried to do that. I feel like the walk and talks are more, like the walk around the graveyard thing is more what people would like in the short form. So I go do the walk around the graveyard, and that's what I send around, and then that draws people into the live stream. I've tried to take these conversations and spread them around. I don't think they're as successful, and the feedback I get from lots of people is I miss the walkabouts. I prefer that format for the shorter videos, and so I'm pretty happy with that. And also, in order to edit some of these conversations, it does take not a lot of work, but enough work that I really would need to see some kind of payout on it. And also, I feel like that format is being done by a lot of different people already, right? Like, you think about Hassan. Hassan is the primary one that I would point out. And so doing that and sending that around as like a primary introduction or as a thing that people see the most, I think would put me in competition with people like that. Whereas what I'm doing now is unique to me. And so that uniqueness is what separates me and puts me into not a different category per se, but definitely when people think about what's happening in the mediosphere, right? That the guy that walks around the graveyard, right? Big beard, glasses, long hair, graveyard, right? That places me. And so, and that's what I want. I want my place in the array of people who are doing this material. And so I think that at the end of the day, if I do the edited conversations, I'll get washed away. I'll get washed into just an array of that. Whereas if I stick with the walkabout videos through the graveyard and just the walkabout videos in general, I think that will continue, that'll make me more memorable and break me out from the rest of the pack. I don't like that phrasing of like break me out from the rest of the pack because that assumes like we're all in a competition with one another or a race or something. But it definitely makes me recognizable. That people be like, oh, it's that guy, right? That's what I'm looking for. Mocked, what is this in reference to? Chicken, Trotsky, My Life, an attempt at an autobiography, 1929. What? I'll just flame ne'er-do-wells to the point that they run away. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not really having a problem with moderating at the moment. Now, that's not nice. Uh-oh. Is this like an in thing? Like if you're like a Trotskyist, is this like the sickest burn? That did Mock just straight up just like burn Trotsky in a significant way, but it's going to require like an explanation. You better be careful, Mock. We got Trotskyists in here. Was Mock, were you waiting for Watson to come in to lay out this supposedly sick burn? Oh no. Oh no. So it begins. Yeah, this right here. Ontario set to introduce strong mayor legislation to speed up housing development. Right? Like, how they're pitching this, right, is in the headline, right? They're going to introduce strong mayor legislation to speed up housing development. That's the pitch. We need stronger mayors to be able to pass legislation faster to speed up housing development. Certainly not. We need strong mayors to suppress the populace as they begin to revolt. Right? Certainly not. Right? Ontario is set to introduce legislation today to give large municipal leaders so-called strong mayor powers as a way to get housing built more quickly. Municipal Affairs and Housing Minister Stephen Clark is set to table a bill that the government says will give municipalities more tools. Premier Doug Ford said he's planning a strong mayor system for Toronto and Ottawa and is considering expanding that to other cities. This is essentially Doug Ford just being like, yeah, me and Robbie could have got so much more done. Robbie, when he was the mayor, he could have got so much more done if he had just been given permission to do stuff without having to ask the council or have any oversight or authority checks. Ford indicated through his government's throne speech Tuesday that a strong mayor system will let municipal leaders reduce timelines for development, standardize processes, and address local barriers to increasing housing supplies. The premier has previously said 2/3 of a council would be able to overrule a mayor under such a system. Ford did not indicate during the recent election campaigns that he was planning to introduce such legislation. So the article at least does its due diligence to say Ford doesn't have a mandate for this, right? He didn't run on it. He didn't ask the populace if he could do this, right? So he doesn't have the mandate for this. He's just doing it because he wants to. And he has previously said 2/3 of the council would be able to overrule a mayor under such a system. So what that means is that you just need to control a quarter of the council, right? Did I do that math right? No, I didn't. You just need to control slightly over 33% of the council, right? So if you have control over 35% of the council and the mayor's office, then you get to push through whatever legislation you like 100% of the time. That's how the conservatives rule, right? That's how conservatives want to rule, through minority theocratic Christianity, basically, right? Yep. So ramrod bylaws to enrich home builders, yeah, and also anything else. Like that's the thing that's not being discussed at all, right? That's the thing that's not being discussed at all. It's like, yeah, we're going to introduce strong mayor legislation to speed up housing development and anything else we want forever. Like, they're just not saying that, right? And anything else they want forever, right? We should make it so that there's a cop in every school that with an AR-15. Yep, the mayor says yes, and so does 35% of the council, so it's fine. Right? We should build a Ferris wheel on top of an airplane that lands on top of a school every 5 p.m. Every weekday. The mayor says yes, and so does 35% of the council, so it's fine. Like, that's what it's going to be. The mayor says yes, and so does 35% of the council, so it's fine. So just make sure you have, like, the most ridiculous, ludicrous, and it's easier to get 35% of the council because of the amalgamation that happened here in Toronto, right? It's easier to get suburban losers who don't live in the city to do what they want along with the city mayor, right? So just have control of like a handful of people and you can do what you like, right? Forget about politicking, forget about any of this. Like, it's just more evidence that shows you, yep, how can we enact reactionary and authoritarian laws and make it seem like municipal ordinance? Exactly, right? Like, it's exactly what it is. It's exactly what it is. Expect to see the stupidest shit you've ever seen. And it really is just a way to ensure that conservatives can get a mayor. So suburban neighborhoods, right, can elect a mayor of a city in order to dominate and control the people who actually live in that city. And the result is going to be the hollowing out of the city of Toronto. That's how it's going. That's the result of it. Because people who live in suburban areas don't give a fuck about social services for people who actually live in the city, right? And the amount of seats that there are within the city of Toronto are overwhelmed by the suburbs. And now all you need to control are the suburbs. And you can pass whatever legislation you like. It's a disaster. It's a disaster entirely. And very unlikely that any Liberal or NDP premier would reverse this, right? That they'll just go along with this because they're suckers for capital too. And just wait. Like, we're now living in a world where cops are just kicking in the doors of communists. Like, well, what do you think? What do you think this legislation's going to do? Like, what do you think this legislation's going to do? Cops kicking in the door of communists, arresting communists and stealing their equipment, right? Disrupting their lives, costing them a lot of money, making things much more difficult for them. Well, what do you think's going to happen here? What do you think this is for? Right? Like, it's pretty straightforward that this is what this is about, in my view. Like, oh, this guy's causing us problems, go kick in his door. Oh, this guy's doing protests and is causing us problems, arrest him. Right? You only need the doxed as well. Yeah, exactly. Like, really brutal. Like, really fucking brutal. Really, really fucking brutal. And I'm more or less of the opinion that the original email was probably generated by the police themselves. Right? They probably just sent it themselves through some, it would take them 5 minutes to do something like this. Right? So they generated the email themselves, sent themselves the email. And why do I think that that's the case? Because any law enforcement agency of any credibility would receive an email from a strange source like this, and the first question they would ask is, well, who sent the email? Where's this email coming from? That you would, join your local Socialist Rifle Association. I mean, might be. And while it's going down, right, tell us to add a credit card processing fee in October. So we're already paying the most for our services here in Canada while getting the worst outcomes, right? So I'll say it again. Canadians spend more than anybody else for internet and phone and all of that, for telecommunications services. We spend the most, and we get the worst services. And now they're going to add a credit card processing fee. These people are psychopaths. Like, that's all there is to it. They should be nationalized. The people who are currently running it should be arrested and have their shit depleted. Like, we should not permit this from happening. And yet we are. And it's going to get worse. It's just going to get worse. Hey, did you know over half of known human pathogenic diseases can be aggravated by climate change? It is relatively well accepted that climate change can affect human pathogenic diseases. However, the full extent of this risk remains poorly quantified. Here we carried out a systemic research for empirical examples about how the impacts of 10 climate hazards sensitive to greenhouse gas emissions on each known human pathogenic disease. We found that 58%, that is 218 out of 375, of infectious diseases confronted by humanity worldwide have been at some point aggravated by climatic hazards. 16% were at times diminished. Empirical cases revealed 1,006 unique pathways in which climatic hazards via different transmission types led to pathogenic diseases. The human pathogenic diseases and transmissions pathways aggravated by climate hazards are too numerous for for comprehensive societal adaptations, highlighting the urgent need to work at the source of the problem, reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Yeah, you can't just have war and famine, right? You gotta get those plagues, guys. The plagues are so important, right? It's one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, right? You can't just do war, famine, and death, right? You got to get some pestilence in there. You got to get some pestilence in there. So prepare to get fucked. Prepare to get fucked. Yeah. We're gonna get fucked, yeah. Speaking of war, Washington's Ukraine weapons aid tops $9 billion. Report reveals U.S. companies armed Russia. 2. Washington has announced a record $1 billion in military aid to Ukraine, including extra HIMARS long-range missiles, Javelin rockets, and other ammunition. We just announced our single largest Ukrainian security assistance package to date, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said on Monday. $1 billion worth of ammunitions, weapons, and equipment, the types of which the Ukrainian people are using so effectively to defend their country. So effective that, a third of the country is occupied? Effective. The latest delivery of arms from the Defense Department brings the total amount of U.S. military aid to Ukraine to $9 billion since February. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said that the U.S. stands by Ukraine and praised its soldiers for resisting the Russian invasion over the last 6 months. As this war stretches on, the courage and strength of Ukraine's military and its people become even more evident and even more extraordinary, he said. Together, we will continue to consult closely with Ukraine and surge additional available systems and capabilities carefully calibrated to make a difference on the battlefield and strengthen Ukraine's eventual position at the negotiating table. When Washington has been criticized by anti-war activists for continuing to pour arms into Ukraine rather than push for peace talks, a new report reveals that U.S. firms had also been arming Russia. The Royal United Service Institute defense think tank found that critical components had been supplied to Moscow from 450 companies in the U.S., Europe, and Asia in recent years. 2/3 of the components were manufactured by U.S.-based companies, RUSI found, based on weapons recovered from the Ukrainian battlefield over the past 5 months. Products manufactured by the U.S.-based Analog Devices and Texas Instruments accounted for nearly a quarter of all the Western components in the weapons. Analog Devices said that it has closed its business in Russia and instructed distributors to halt shipments to the country. Texas Instruments said it follows all laws in the countries where it operates, and that the parts found in the Russian weapons had been designed for commercial products. Research found that the Russian KH-101 cruise missile, which has been used to strike Ukrainian cities, including the capital Kiev, also had 31 foreign components, with parts manufactured by companies including US-based Intel Corporation and AMD-owned Xilinx. The company said they abided by relevant legislation and followed all global export control laws. According to RUSI, more than 80 Western-manufactured microchips were subject to U.S. export controls since at least 2014, meaning they would have required a license to be shipped to Russia. The think tank said the companies exporting the parts had a responsibility to carry out due diligence to ensure they were not being sent to Russian military or for military end use. This just really goes to show you, right? This is just another example that the companies that exist within America do not care about America. That the companies that exist within America don't care about the national security of America. They don't care about building nation building. They don't care about civilization building. They don't care about any of that. All they know is there is a demand for a product and we will fill that demand. That's as far as they go. And if it is literally selling weapons to your enemies, so that they can more effectively fight a war while you simultaneously sell weapons to the people they are fighting, they will do it. Very straightforwardly. Very, very straightforwardly. And there's, like, their allegiance is not to their country or their people. It is exclusively to profit. Exclusively. Like, weapons manufacturers are selling weapons to both sides of the conflict. Wild. Wild to see. Rural Texans, even conservative ones, unconvinced by Republicans' public school privatization crusade. As a Texas school superintendent, Adrian Johnson is no stranger to the struggles small rural public schools face from trying to recruit teachers, especially after more than 2 years of navigating school during a global pandemic to a general lack of resources. And now, after the school shooting in Uvalde, there's a renewed conversation about campus security. With so many problems to solve, Johnson, who oversees the Hearn Independent School District northwest of College Station, doesn't understand why state lawmakers' to-do lists heading into next year's legislative session seem to focus more on school choice over something like school safety. There's always seems to be a school choice debate every legislative year, and I'm not afraid of that. I think the debating is good. That's part of democracy, Johnson said. But he also wonders why public schools always take a back seat to the pursuit of policies that could diminish them. Why not make it imperative to support the local school district, he said. Instead, from where he stands, the talk in Austin is already focused on school choice, the broad term applied to a host of taxpayer-funded alternatives to sending a child to the local public school. Although the Texas legislature doesn't meet for another 5 months, Governor Greg Abbott has voiced support for public school alternatives. Abbott has said he supports parents' choice to send their children to any public school, charter school, or private school, with state funding following the student. And Democrat Beto O'Rourke will face off against Abbott in November, has also joined the debate, running ads asking people to reject Greg Abbott's radical plan to defund public schools. The Republican Party of Texas has listed the school choice as a legislative priority, and pro-school choice groups like Texas Private Schools Association and the Texas Public Policy Foundation will also push for school choice legislation. But in the northeastern corner of the state, Representative Gary Van Dever, a Republican whose district includes 30 rural school districts, is still unconvinced. He was one of several lawmakers who helped kill school choice legislation in 2017. He said one of the concerns he's hearing from parents is that they're paying property taxes, which fund public schools, but have opted for either homeschooling or sending their kids to private school. I prefer to reduce their property tax so they have the option of spending that money any way they choose, whether it be alternative education choices, saving for college, or purchasing a new car, Van Dever said. Dude, how is this anything other than the American school system just creating stupider people? Right? My critique of the education system, I think, is already fairly scathing. That it by and large exists to vet out disobedient people. That's more or less what it's doing. That any actual education that people receive from these facilities is ancillary, is a secondary benefit. That the primary benefit is ensuring that we know who the obedient people are and we know who the disobedient people are. Who are the people who do what they're told, and when they do what they're told, they do it well, right? Who are the difference? And split those groups up so we know immediately, right? That's the primary reason the education system exists. But this is a whole other scale, right? Because at least in the system of like a public educated system, everybody goes through it. Everybody has the same experience, right? This is literally just going to create a class divide, right? You're going to have the rich school and the poor school, and the poor school is going to suck, right? And the rich school is going to be considered much more prestigious. Oh, if you've got this school on your resume, that means you get to go here. right? And so you're creating an entire different strata. You're creating a class divide within your society that's completely embedded, and obviously it's going to break down that way. And eventually, you're literally just going to have like huge sections of the American populace that aren't even going to be considered educated from going into any of these public schools. Like the amount of shittiness that these schools already have is amazing. And then on top of all of that, you're going to layer on this idea that like, teachers themselves need to be armed, right? Teachers need to actually know how to shoot a gun and be ready to shoot when a school shooting happens. Like, I can't think of anything more bonkers than this, man. Why would anybody be a teacher in America right now? Why would anyone be a teacher in America right now? It's just absolutely bonkers to me. Like, Van Dever says he's not one to shut the door on any policy and looks forward to the debate next session. He wants to see a better accountability system created for private schools receiving the money. As conservatives, we expect it from our public schools, he said. We need to know that we're getting big bang for our buck for every educational dollar, wherever it's spent. This just sounds some like naive, dumb bullshit to me. Like, you're not getting a bang for your buck in America, dude. Like, you don't pay your teachers. Not only do you not pay your teachers, you're literally giving people the option to abandon sections of the society, right? That's what it is. When you're saying like choose your educator, choose your school, you're literally saying, pick the school that's rich, send all the rich kids to one spot. That school gets all the money because that's where all the rich kids are, right? The poor school, well, it doesn't get any funding and so it collapses, right? And now you're creating like feedback loops where the only way to get funding is to ensure that kids get good grades. And so if the kids have good grades, then they get more funding. And so, well, what happened? Because it's a poor school, so it can't get good grades because all the kids are poor, grinding away, suffering, right? They're not going to get good grades. They're more likely to be the disobedient, rebellious. And so the grades are worse, so they get less funding. Who gets more funding? The rich school, right? Because all the kids are well fed, well slept, right? They don't have to have a job or something, right? Like it's weird. It's weird watching like this nation that was considered the greatest country in the world, and that all of the propaganda growing up tried to convince me that America's the greatest country in the world. It's odd watching it self-destruct like this. Like, and it is a self-destruction. Like, it's just crazy to see. And to see in real time. And right now what's going on with Trump is, with this Mar-a-Lago stuff and all this, it's just like a form of that self-destruction. That it's just this implosion happening in a massive and amazing way, right? Like, I've always thought to myself that like writing a script where the lead character is like is like the personification of America. Her name is Erica, and that's only so that she can say I'm Erica, and it's I'm Erica, right? America, America, and and it would just be her blowing herself up, like just constantly in a state of totally destroying herself and making the most self-destructive decisions that she could possibly make. Like, I absolutely love it. I saw a conversation recently, and it was an ambassador from China. I've talked about it several times on the channel. And the guy is straight up asking, why did you send away your manufacturing base? What kind of crazy decision is that? And it's absolutely true. It's absolutely the case. It's just totally self-destructive for no reason whatsoever, except, a couple of billionaires. And of course, in the meantime, humans are not prepared for a pandemic caused by fungal infections. Like, we're not prepared for lots of things, right? And fungus is one of these things that we don't know anything about. And anytime I look into it, it looks crazy. Like the mycelial network that exists underneath the soil that some of the largest plant life on Earth are mushrooms. And what I love about mushrooms is that they consume dead organisms. That in a way they are like the underbelly of the earth, right? That they eat away at dead and composing things. And mushrooms have started to eat like oil deposits and stuff like this. That if there is actually a savior for humanity in regards to this climate change crisis, it might actually be mushrooms, right? But at the same time, mushrooms can develop and change in such a way that this article is talking about. Changes in the environment and climate, as well as fungicide overuse in agriculture, have driven a rise in fungi capable of infecting people and evading the few drugs designed to fight them. I'm hoping that we get like mushroom people. You know what I'm talking about? I'm hoping that we get in Dungeons and Dragons. There's actually like a Dungeons and Dragons mushroom people. Yeah, the myconoid. Here they are. I'm hoping we get some mushroom people. Aren't you guys getting hype? Get hype for the mushroom people, right? Or like Ligandes here, you did the Wog thing from Warhammer, right? We could and orcs come out of mushroom pods, right? So we might get mushroom people out of all this. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't we absolutely lovely, right? You get some of these like deep southern Texas types, but they've got like mushrooms coming out of their heads, right? Suddenly we got like a whole new race or a species of people, right? The mushroom people. They're fucking ridiculous, man. Fucking ridiculous. I'm trying my goddamnedest to what an absurd place. What an absurd place. It's the absurdity, I think, that's getting me these days. Just like, what the fuck is this? Why are we doing this? Why does anybody tolerate it? What's the point? What's the point? I keep running into this. In China, there's an actual movement. It's called Buy Land, right, is what they call it. The phrase is let it rot. And it's an offshoot of another movement called the Lie Flat movement, right? And the entire point of the movement is to rebel against this capitalist idea of gaining material gain and constantly working away in order to achieve goals and all of this. And literally it's to do exactly the opposite. It's to cease participating in that as a form of protest of your life, right? Which is how I view it. That, like, I could, like, get my real estate degree, right? Like, I could go get some easy thing that would generate a lot of money for me, right? I think about that every so often. I go, hey, why don't I just, like, go get my forklift certificate or something, right? Something easy and straightforward, right? You work a normal job, right? Make like 40,000, 50,000 a year or whatever, right? It's because I refuse to participate in this. That's what it really comes down to. I look at the insanity of our society. I look at the insanity of the decisions that we're making, the betrayal, the overt betrayal that we're putting at the feet of our children, and I'm just disinterested in it. I'm just, no thanks. I'm not even going to work a forklift for these people, right? I consider it bad enough that I've got to give them coffee. I consider it bad enough that when they come to a little tourist trap area, a little park that exists in the society, that I'm giving them little dainties and snackies, right? Which is what I do for capitalism, right? That they get their little treats and their little rewards for destroying the society and destroying the ecosystem. So I consider that bad enough. I'm certainly not going to move gear around for them, right? Certainly not gonna like become a notary or something. Check a little box for them. Like, there's nothing valid here. There's no pursuit. There's no such thing as an honest day's work anymore. It simply doesn't exist. I feel like this channel is the most honest that I can get. And that's why I hope that one day I'll be able to pay my bills with just this channel. That's sort of the hope, right? Because I feel like this is at least honest. Like, pointing out the goddamn absurdity of our society and the contradictions of it, and the betrayal that the society is levying on itself, the self-destruction, and for me, I think I wish I had have gotten this way a lot sooner. I wish I had been here where I am at now a lot sooner. That we all put hope into figures like Obama, into figures like Trudeau. And they just ended up being another grift. They just ended up being another way to waylay us from actually doing what needs to be done. Right? And I worry that it's going to be too late. And then that worry reminds me that I shouldn't worry about it. That I feel I'm doing the thing that I can right now, which is to stop participating. Which, if we all stopped participating, that would be the end of it. Right? I'm doing the thing that I can do now. Trying to push the culture and push the society in whatever small way that I can to understand that we can't just keep doing this. I mean, that's not true. We can just keep doing this, but that there's consequences for it. That there's significant consequences for it. And really at the end of the day, the next generation of people are going to look back on us and ask the questions that I am asking. Why are we doing this? Why did we do this? Why did we think that this was smart? What benefit did we think that we were going to add? And at least they're going to look at someone like me and they're going to say, here's a guy who tried. Here's a guy who saw it, how it was going, and at least he gave it a shot. And I wish I could do more. I wish there was some business I could get involved in. I wish there was something that I could get connected with that would actually meaningfully move the bar. But there isn't. So it's just one con after another in this society. There's a fungus among us. Absolutely grinning. Absolutely. Maybe it's me. Maybe I've been taken over by the fungus. And this is just my plan to spread the fungus throughout the society. You're the John Brown clarion call in the YouTube wilderness. Well, the connection to John Brown. John Brown was a real hero. Truly. John Brown was a real hero. If one day I'm put even in the same category or class as John Brown, I would consider that a massive success for my life. You suffer twice when you worry. That's exactly right, Cotton. That's exactly right. And that's why I think I'll close with this. It is best to just live your life. It is. That I'm glad that I do this channel. I'm glad you're all here so that we can find some kind of catharsis together. Express these anxieties, express these concerns together in solidarity with one another. which I know it helps me. I can't just stew in silence. I can't just I can't just join someone else's chat. Like, I can't be a Hassan head, right? I think about that. Why do I do this channel at all? Why do I do this at all? And it's because if I don't, I will go mad. Because something must be expressed. It has to be expressed. It has to be spoken aloud. Yeah, dude, that's what it's all about. Watson's nailed it. It is. It's for the chicks, of course. How could it not be? Right? One day, Sarah Palin will see this channel, and she'll go, that's the man for me. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, always remember, you are a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. These billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the hopes that you'll never realize it. You'll just stay the good little commodity that they need you to be. Revolt. Rebel. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.